How are you guys?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, man. Good. You got back to the hotel?
Yes, sir. I'm all seated now.
Catherine, how are you?
I'm all right. Ready for this.
I've
There's a little bit of an echo that I'm hearing. I think it's from probably your end.
probably yeah.
It
I've
was
I've
very,
moved I've moved the mic away. So if my mic is too loud or it's echoey, always let me know, and I'll fix it from
okay.
my end. Um,
Seems good
I've
now.
so I've
Yeah.
I've co-hosted you and I've co-hosted Ian as well, just so you could bring up all the journalists, the speakers you've invited, because you've got their handles. That'll be great.
Okay. I'm doing that right now. Yeah. Sending speaker invites.
And for everyone requesting to speak, we'll just gradually bring people up and rotate the panel. May rotate the co-hosts as well. Someone recommended we try that out. Ian, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. You finally got your 10 hours of sleep.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Took me a while, but 10 hours. Yeah.
Because I see, do you schedule tweets? Because your tweets don't stop. You there, Ian?
He just doesn't sleep.
I don't know.
Ian, we can't
Yeah, I
hear
don't know if
you.
you're speaking, Ian. We can't hear you, man. Ian.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Sports Max, and it was goofing up. So, what did you ask me? I missed
I
all
said,
that.
do you schedule your tweets? Because your tweets just don't stop. You've always got tweets going on.
No, I don't. I'm just on here. I've, I'm
Because I
always
remember we
online.
did the space last time, and you said you're going to bed, and then all I see, I
Yeah.
go to bed and takes me, and I stay in bed a couple of hours working, and I keep seeing you tweet and tweet and tweet. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this guy's got
It's hard to get away from it.
insomnia at its peak.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, let me just invite.
I would.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
bro.
I wouldn't say I have insomnia. I can sleep at any time. I can sleep sitting up if I want to.
Shit. Okay, well then you're lucky. I have insomnia.
Oh, that sucks.
All right. So Catherine, how are we going with the guest? Connor,
Yeah, I'm trying
I've
to
sent an invite
do.
to Connor. Let me invite him again. So just for the audience, we're just inviting all the special guests that we have today. And we've got.
Do we want to add Steve?
Yeah, of course,
Good.
bro. Of course, you can add anyone you like.
Okay.
All right, let me send an invite.
So
I'm gonna DM an invite to Kathy. Connor's got an invite already via DMs. Kathy.
yeah, I invited everyone else and I sent them DMs just to let them know. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if there's a glitch because I did try to invite them up, some of the people who are in the room, and they show up as in the room and they're not coming up. So I don't know if there's an issue there.
I just
Mhm.
invited Steve and Piotr.
Perfect. Piotr, how are you, man?
Yeah. I think he's still connecting.
So Connor, you can DM me, guys. I've just sent you all a DM. So if Connor, Kathy, and Reed,
Read us in.
beautiful.
Reed's in.
Reed is in. Connor, you've got an invite. I can see you in the audience. And Kathy, you have an invite. Let me DM her. Oh.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for Kathy. Ed will be joining in a few minutes as well. And we're just waiting for Connor because I know Connor is glitching because he's in the audience. There he is.
Yeah.
So Connor, if you could DM me what issue you're facing, but it didn't let me in. All right, so just for I know Catherine, you're not blocking any of them, Connor or because if you
I don't think so. What's Connor's name? What's his last name?
it's so username is CONOR64.
Oh, Connor's Friedersdorf, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
No
check
one
to
should
see.
be
And
blocking that
No,
person.
he's not. No, I don't have him blocked.
Wonderful,
No.
right?
and the other one's
Yeah, I like
Kathy
his writing.
Young
I
63.
wouldn't
Kathy
block
Young
him.
63. All right, let me.
I wonder if Kathy
Welcome,
Young has
Reed.
me blocked. I'll just
Oh
check.
yeah, guys, message them. Make sure they don't have Ian blocked. Oh, okay.
No,
How do
no, they
you
don't.
check if
Neither of
someone
them
has
has
you
me blocked.
blocked?
I know who they are.
Ah, okay.
So I just checked their profiles. Yeah. No, Kathy I disagree with her on a lot of things, but we also agree on a lot of things as well. So having her here would be great. Connor's the same thing. Pretty sure I've interacted with them in the
Cool.
past.
They're both DMing me. They're trying to come up. So Twitter Spaces is doing what Twitter
Okay.
Spaces does.
I'll try inviting
Please,
them.
yeah,
I'll
do
try
that.
inviting
Do that as
them
well.
see
Connor,
if that
try to
works.
jump out, and
Yeah.
Kathy, try to jump out of the space, close the app, and join back in. And there's
Yeah, I see it. Connor's invited, but he needs to accept it. I think.
it's via DMs.
Yeah, I DM'd them both.
Okay. And Ed Dano is joining in a bit, so we'll just give him another couple of minutes.
See, Twitter Spaces is wonderful, but it is also incredibly glitchy, unfortunately.
Yeah,
It needs a lot of work.
It has gotten better. I've invited Christy Smith. I think she's a fantastic journalist.
Cool. Kathy as well. Go through the audience. What happens in every space? As you know, we just get sudden surprise guests.
Mm-hmm.
So the agenda of today's space should be a pretty interesting one. I saw all the, I've been keeping up with all the backlash after Elon's or Twitter's suspension of people doxing others.
You mean the Thursday night massacre?
Yeah, I saw it on Wikipedia, man. That's it's called on Wikipedia, the Thursday night massacre. So I've been keeping up, listening to both sides of the discussion, and I think it will, we'll kick it off there, and I think it will expand to a discussion about free speech in general. I know Alex is going to be inviting either today or another show a few of the conservative journalists that were suspended before Elon and reinstated in recent weeks. I know he did a great space with them as well. Mm-hmm. So it would be good when we get them on as well.
Yeah.
How did it go with Connor and Catherine?
I am not hearing what the issue might be, so I don't know why they're struggling to come up.
Hold on. I know what's happening. Oh, shit. Do you know how were they suspended and they came back?
No.
Okay, none of them were suspended before.
No.
None of them.
Okay, so what they need to do, is force close the app, because if they're using an iPhone, force close the app. Let me tell them, force close the app, and then join back in and rejoin. Should work.
Restart the app.
Restart the app in full. All right.
Yeah, I know that if you are running Twitter and when Twitter Spaces broke, if you never restarted the app, it will not let you join Spaces.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I forgot about that. So that means a lot of people in the audience will not be able to join.
Yep.
It might be worth also clearing their cache. If they sort of reset the app in the menu, it can help as well on the iPhone.
But if they restart their phone, it should work, no?
Yeah,
it should work because it worked for me.
Well, for me, I need to force quit sometimes Twitter in my apps, and then clearing the cache also helps as well. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll give him a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, we've got tomorrow's debate is going to be a crazy one, Catherine. It's going to be the COVID one that I delayed just to give me more time to prep. That's going to be
the one that makes you really nervous.
The one that makes me extremely nervous.
I didn't know
Do you have people on both sides
Mario.
of the debate?
You're a masochist, Mario. That's my nickname for you now, to be honest.
What was your...
So I'm curious, Mario, do you have people on both sides of the debate?
Yes, absolutely. There's one doctor that was suspended off Twitter. What's his name, Jenny? The doctor that was suspended? That's not on the app. Not
either Malone or
a lot of them.
There's a bit of bunch.
That's not back.
There's Bhattacharya as well.
Yeah, there's one that's not back yet. There's a whole bunch of them. There's a list of them, and we've got them on. We've got ones that are pro-vaccine 100%, others that are somewhere in the middle, like Dr. Drew somewhere in the middle, and then you got others that are just completely against the vaccine.
Do we have any health officers like
yes,
California's? Forget her name.
Do we have any health officers joining tomorrow?
I'm
asking the person that's organizing it. She's next to me now.
Mario, I have one question, because I assume the doctors are going to be able to handle the debate themselves. I know you said you're going to have a Pfizer board member, and if I don't get up, I'd really appreciate it if you asked the Pfizer board member. They have raked in record profits in the hundreds of billions. I've yet to see one ad for the vaccine on TV. I've seen public health officials, I've seen government officials, but not once. And when I turn on my TV for restless leg syndrome, I see an ad listing side effects that takes 10 minutes, may cause nausea, may make you gamble. I haven't heard one listing any of the side effects they admit exist now. So when the Pfizer board member's up there, I'd really appreciate if you ask him that question, especially
I'll
since
have it ready.
he's
I'll have it
yeah.
ready, Protocol. No problem. I'll have it ready.
I have seen I've seen an advert for the pill. I forget the name of the pill that they've been giving prodigals or pushing, like Vidarol or something. But that's all I've seen in regards to like any of the vaccine.
Paxlovid, you mean?
inducing things.
Paxlovid?
Possibly.
Yeah,
I thought
which
it began with
causes a
V, but I don't
rebound,
know.
and some of the initial studies
Yeah,
showed
yeah,
it was
yeah,
not that
yeah.
effective, but it still got approval and a lot of government money. But yeah, I know the pill.
All right, guys. So just for the audience, we're gonna kick it off now. I've resent the invite to Kathy and Connor, so hopefully it works. And we've got others that will be joining a bit later. In the meantime, we're gonna be checking our DMs. So if you want to come up on stage, we may not see your request putting your hand up, so you could DM me. The team is checking them now. I'm just messaging them, and we can bring you up. So the purpose of this space, and maybe Ian and Catherine, you can start giving an overview for the audience. For anyone that doesn't know, we have two stories really, and the main one we're going to be focusing on is on the journalist that was suspended because of the let's call it the doxing situation after Elon Jet got suspended. So from what I understand is a stalker followed Elon's family car. His son, his wife were there. I'm not sure if other kids were there, and he stopped the car and jumped on the roof of the car. And after that incident, a day later, Elon announced a rule. I don't know if it's a new rule or an existing rule that anyone that doxes someone else live, that's a breach of the terms and conditions.
It's a clarification. It is a clarification of an existing rule that prevents you from doxing.
So this is an existing rule.
That's what people. It's an existing rule. Yeah, they just added, additional details there to say, hey, this also includes live doxing of people's locations. I mean, this is because previously the rules are very nebulous, very vague. It was hard to tell if what was doxing, what was not. And it was kind of up to the Twitter moderator to decide what was. And that was an issue, but no one really made a fuss about it.
Okay. And so after that, the Elon Jet account got suspended. Was the others that track other jets, were they also suspended?
Yes.
Okay.
They were all suspended.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't just the Elon Jet. It was all the others
as
well.
Okay, well, that's I think important to mention. And so I'm just trying to give an objective overview before we get into the discussion. And afterwards, he suspended journalists, and that's where it gets controversial. He suspended journalists that were doing what exactly? Because some people are saying they doxed, other people are saying they didn't dox, and obviously we have journalists on stage right now that can give us more clarity, but maybe...
Well, obviously they didn't link to his location, but they did link to an article or to the Elon Jet that had that information on there, and that is why he banned them. It would be no different than linking to, say, a public address website that has someone's home address on it. There's no difference.
Okay. So I want to kick it off with Reed. Reed, I'd love a quick introduction, man. I'd love your take on this, and why is there so much, so much, I'm not going to use the word hate, but just a lot of controversy around this decision. If it's an existing term, is it just because the journalist didn't really dox, they were just reporting on a story? Is that the main issue there, Reed?
Yeah, I think that's probably the main issue. And hi, little introduction. I'm Reed Albergati. I'm the technology editor for Semaphore, which is a new publication. I'm based out on the West Coast, and have been covering the tech industry for a while. I think I don't think that these reporters were, trying to dox Elon Musk in real time. I do, I wrote in my sort of a column in the newsletter the other day that I am sympathetic to, the concern of having your private jet followed, in real time on Twitter, everywhere you go. And I get that, what happened to his son is really upsetting, and I'm a father myself. I'd be incredibly angry. But I also think that, his decision to just sort of quickly disable these accounts of journalists is really a turning point for Twitter. I mean, I don't think it'll be interesting to hear from the conservative journalists that you've invited on. I'd love to hear their stories, but this does seem like a new thing on Twitter where you have journalists who are really, I think for the most part, I mean, some of them have said things on Twitter that are pretty snarky about Elon Musk, and have shown themselves to be have shown their biases, I guess you could say, in covering the story. But for the most part, these are fact-based journalists who are at reputable publications like the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and whatever you think of their slant. So I think it's a different Twitter today because while the content moderation in the past I think has made mistakes and oftentimes gone overboard, in the past meaning before Musk took over, it was never just one person who's accountable to no one who can make decisions based on their emotions in the moment for who to kick off the platform.
May I offer a rebuttal to what you just said? So I agree with like 50% of what you said, but I will contend that I don't think this is a new thing. In the past, Twitter had kicked off a lot of conservative journalists. For instance, the New York Post, when they reported on the Hunter Biden story, they were kicked off for publishing that under the claim that it was hacked materials, even though they were able to provide evidence within the story itself that it was not a result of hacked materials. It's provided to them legally. And beyond that, there's also the issue of Project Veritas. Whatever your views are on that organization, you cannot deny that they do journalistic work, and you may not like their findings, but they were permanently banned, until Elon took over the company. So I don't think it's really anything new, and honestly, a 24-hour ban compared to what was essentially a 1 year or 2 year ban is there's a big difference between that.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I would agree with Ian. As a journalist myself who was banned from the platforms with a permanent suspension for breaking literally 0 terms of service, this has been going on a long time. You just don't really feel it until it happens to you. And you tend to justify, I think, it happening to somebody who you disagree with because you feel like they deserve it. And these weren't permanent suspensions, right? So it was a 7-day ban is what he determined. And then he didn't even stick to that. I think he let everybody basically except a few folks back on. I don't see the benefit or how it's responsible to link to something that's showing real-time information of a location of someone who's polarizing and a lot of people may dislike or may have a problem with. There's no benefit to that information in terms of reporting, in my opinion. I wouldn't do it just because I don't see what the value for the everyday reader would be other than to cause an issue.
So my issue with this is that we really have different journalists sort of committing different types of tweets. So there were some journalists who linked specifically to Facebook groups or other places that did show the coordinates. And I think a legitimate case can be made that they were sort of going in violation of this new policy. However, there were some journalists that I spoke to that didn't seem to violate that same policy. And didn't, like, for example, one journalist that I spoke to, like Matt Binder, for example, he said that, all he did is a screenshot of an NLAPD report. So what he did not sort of, whether you believe it's doxing or not, he did not engage in any of that.
That's his claim, right?
That's his claim, correct? It's his claim.
Matt Binder's a liar. Matt Binder's a liar, just so you know.
Well, Ian, you cannot say that because
I can say that
that's
because
your
he has
claim.
repeatedly lied about me, so I can say that. For a fact.
Well, okay, whether he lied or not.
Well, that didn't take very long.
What happened there? You cut out?
Mario,
no, just everyone's
I
talking.
can't hear you speak right now.
Oh, sorry. I will speak. Yes, yeah. So I said, go ahead, Catherine. Sorry, I just because 3 people speak at the same time, I just muted all. I don't know why it muted me. Yeah. So you were saying?
Yeah, so I think it's important to sort of, different. And here's the thing: whether you consider someone to be a liar or not, we don't actually have the evidence in front of us to declare either one way or the
I
other.
do.
And they
I
were
do.
not
I can
also.
call him a
Ian,
liar from personal
hold on,
experience. And are you
Ian.
invalidating my lived experience? How dare
I
you?
am
All right,
invalidating
guys.
your.
So we'll just go to. Okay, I'm glad I heard you laugh, Ian. I freaked out. I thought you were being serious. I freaked
No,
out for a
no. I'm
second.
serious about him being a liar, though.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but would you say that if he did lie about that one thing, but we don't know whether he lied, so he might be a liar who
Exactly.
might have lied.
One lie does not
He has a
make
history of
someone.
lying. He has a history of lying.
Okay. But is
Well,
it
I
possible
do not know.
to just quick question, Catherine? Would it
Let's
be
not.
possible to actually to verify this information? Like, because he can't, because if he tweeted something, the tweet is still there or it's been removed.
It's probably been
Probably
removed,
removed.
so I don't know. But we can,
Okay.
and that's the thing. We don't. This is the problem that I have
That's his
overall
word against ours.
Well, this is what's been happening though. We do not have sort of evidence, and also none of the journalists have been presented with the reasoning for their suspension
That's a
at the time that
fault
it
of
happened,
Twitter.
which is like, well, that's the thing that was going on with Twitter 1.0. So Twitter 2.0 isn't really any better in that way. That's, I
Catherine,
want to hold
it's
them to
not
the
fixed
same
yet.
standard.
You can't demand that Elon institute a whole bunch of changes to the back end of the system when he's still working on it. Clearly, it's
Well,
still
he
being
was
worked on.
claiming he was going to make it better, so he has to
He
make
is
it
making
better.
it better. He is making it better, but he's not a miracle worker. He can't just snap his fingers and fix Twitter overnight. There are a lot of issues with Twitter itself. You know this, right?
I
There are a
know,
lot of things he wants to
but
do with it. So you
I'm
can't say,
giving
hey,
him
maybe he shouldn't suspend anyone because they don't tell people why they're being suspended.
I'm giving
Like,
him leeway, but
not
he's
fair.
also criticized the previous administration for this. So it's also fair to criticize him for these things.
I
So
don't
Reed,
think so.
I saw you
Just
jump in
him.
earlier, Reed. By the way, Connor dropped out, so I'll try to bring Connor back up. But Reed, I saw you unmute earlier.
Oh yeah. Well, one point I think you guys already made, which is like I would love to just see all of these tweets, and it's really frustrating that by banning the accounts, we can't go back and see that history, right? And see what because it is my understanding as well that some of them linked to that account, the Elon Jet account.
Aaron
and some
Rupar
did not.
yeah. Aaron Rupar actually did. Like when he wrote his Substack, and I'm just paraphrasing what he wrote. At first, he was like, "I have no idea why I'm being banned." Yada yada yada. I never linked to it, and then he actually posted an update to the Substack. You can go check it out on aaronrupar.substack.com, where he said, like, I actually linked to the Facebook page that had all the Elon Jet live tracking information. So he actually admitted why he got banned. Like, so at least he's honest. Yeah.
I would also really like to hear.
But I'm talking,
Tracy's
just so you know,
story.
guys, I'm actually, sorry, Reed, just very briefly. I'm talking to Matt right now about joining. He's on, we're chatting on WhatsApp. So he cannot join Spaces, it's glitching still.
If he deletes and reinstalls the app, it fixed it for me. He might have to actually delete it and reinstall it.
And
Yeah.
Thanks, Portugal. Should work.
I want to ask him why he looks like a Sasquatch.
I was going to ask Tracy if she could tell her story, because I do think I agree that
college
the
libeled
previous
a
Twitter
bakery
went overboard
with racist
banning
fake
people,
rates.
and I think there was not
But after
enough
slandering these
transparency. I think
civilians,
that was a
the
good point
college must
that
now
Elon
pay
made,
millions.
as he was acquiring
Yeah,
Twitter.
finally,
And
the price of being woke
I mean,
might be going broke. An
Tracy,
Ohio
if you could,
appeals court,
you sort of said you were banned for no
recently
reason, but
upheld
there's
a
probably,
$32 million
there's
victory
probably like a
for
more
Gibson's
nuanced story
Bakery
or some
false
more detail
racism
that you could give us on
leveled
that
against the
situation,
mom
right?
and pop shop.
I would love to.
The case goes
Sure.
back to
I actually
2016
was
when
banned
the
on
bakery's
January
owner's
8th
son stopped 3
of
black Oberlin
2021
students,
with
one of whom was stealing
thousands
wine
and thousands of
from
other
the
people.
store.
I'd actually never
so
ever
the
had a Twitter
bakery also
suspension or
sells
broken
wine?
a Twitter rule in my entire
What
tenure on
is
Twitter,
this
which was
place,
since 2009. And so it wasn't a shock to me that I was banned because there was a swath of censorship that just flooded the platform. But the reasoning behind it is what really got me. I didn't get a notification of a reason for quite some time. When it came, it said I was guilty of platform manipulation and spam, which was false. I appealed that, and then a few months later, I was slapped with the hateful content label, and that was untrue as well. I think that there was just a wide-scale banning of conservative thought on the platform, and I don't think there's much argument there. And I'm against that. Like, if I don't, I think everybody should be able to hear what other people's views are, regardless of whether they agree with them or not. And then you can choose not to listen or not to read or to move along if you don't agree. But literally nothing, no violation. I do journalism. That's what I always use the platform for.
I'd be quite interested to maybe get a European side, because I think, from what I understand, the European Union is having a bit of a tough time with Musk, because the EU is obviously much more restrictive on certain flows of information.
They don't have the laws in place yet.
No, they don't, but they are, they're a bit of a nanny state in some ways. So I think maybe, Mario, if you've got any European journalists who could come on first.
No, we just got the US.
You want to focus on the US? All right. No, I think it's also liberal versus conservative. Obviously, definitions is very different. But
this is about
Reed, I saw you unmute. I saw Tara's hand up as well. So Reed, I'll let you continue the conversation with Tracy, and then we'll go to Tara. Good to have you, Tara.
It's lasted about 18
I just
months
thought
or something back
Tracy.
in the
I mean,
1690s.
I was curious, kind of like what your
and the reason the
what are the
Salem witch
kinds of
trials
things,
ended,
like when they say hateful content, like, were you saying things that were sort of that certain groups found offensive, or I'm trying not to be like judgmental. I
appreciate
would love
that.
to understand it more.
Yeah, no, I mean, my tweets are available for everybody to go look through, right? Because I've been reinstated, thankfully. So they're still all there. And so anybody can go back on my timeline and take a view of what I said and decide whether or not you feel that was hateful in any way, because it still exists. And so I think that's telling in and of itself, because you'd assume that those tweets would be labeled or removed if there was something wrong with them in the past or now. So no, I mean, literally no reason. Yesterday I think there was a space where, Ian, you said that I was a proponent of QAnon, which is false.
Well, not necessarily proponent, but one of the leading voices that platformed it. You sort of gave it a lot of legs, right? When you had a huge YouTube channel, I'm not sure if you still do, you were one of the maybe 3 big channels that were pushing, maybe not pushing, but you were analyzing the drops, and that made them really popular, right? That was, you put it to the forefront.
Yeah, I guess if you want to give me credit for that, sure.
I do. Yeah. You did a good job doing it. I mean, I know you were critical of QAnon, but you did put a lot of it into people's onto their feeds, right? I mean, everybody saw it, and then they started following it. And I know maybe that's not your responsibility to, if they make the choice to become QAnon, that's up to them. But
I just think the
certainly did play a role in it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think the distinction's important only because, literally have not uttered a word about it in over 5 years. And so to be continuously, labeled that way is really frustrating, especially when a lot of the legacy media has taken that to be, equal to domestic terrorism. And then to know that you've stood and said, well, wait a second, maybe this isn't all that great, been public about that, and then to be kind of lumped into that group for no reason is frustrating, because I was a journalist before it and I was a journalist after it. So it's not like it was how I became a journalist. So I just want to make that clarification. But that label follows people, right? So once you label people, once you dox people, once you mislead about a person, that follows them wherever they go. It gets amplified by people. It gets talked about by people. And then how do you, you get kind of put in buckets based on things that aren't really 100%. So that's really the only issue I have with that. But I don't think that that played into my suspension at all, because I had not spoken about it on the platform. So.
Yeah, I know you were tweeting about the China virus, right? There's this huge article, even I linked to it, where you talked about why it's so big in Italy, right? Why Wuhan in Italy connected. Milan is basically a Chinese city. Most of the workers there are from China. I think that might have played into it. Although we now know that you were correct on that one, 100%.
Yeah, I did the Italy connection with the One Belt, One Road. I did that story, yes. I'm sure a lot of things I was saying were unacceptable, and now people are recognizing them to be generally true. And that's good. I think there's redemption now for a lot of folks that are now able to speak again. And I think that a lot of the banning of these journalists who did this, quote, doxing, there's almost a righteous indignation from some folks, because it's how does it feel? This is how we were targeted, and the hypocrisy is quite alarming. People are up in arms making Wikipedia entries about it when this has been going on for years and nobody cared. It was all fine because you disagreed with what these people's ideology might be or how they did their work or whatever. And so that's the biggest issue, I think, the most polarizing thing for folks now.
So I had a quick
think that's
question
a
there
fair
for
point.
Reed, I was going to go to you to get your comments on this. Like, I think it's just, do you think it was, by the way, Christie's here, sick. We're trying to bring up Connor now as well. But I want to get your thoughts. Like, I think you agree that it was a bit overblown. The response was a bit too extreme. And do you still think that some of those accounts did not deserve a suspension or temporary suspension?
Well, I don't really see why they needed to be suspended personally. I mean, I don't think by writing about Elon Jet they had somehow increased the level of danger. I don't think it wasn't like a clear and present danger situation. Again, I get why Elon's pissed off about it. Totally makes sense. I just think like after listening to Tracy tell her story, I mean, I think that the big issue is really transparency. I mean, like the fact that Tracy was banned and all these people were banned under the previous administration, let's call it, I think just kind of there were a lot of things at play, right? I mean, I think there's some ideology, but there's also pressure from advertisers and pressure from certain groups, and I think those people, in the trust and safety group actually had a pretty tough job. And I think the big problem was the lack of transparency, that they didn't explain their rationale. And had they explained the rationale, I mean, people would have had the chance to make arguments of why they were wrong. And that could have been debated.
A lot of the rationale's coming out now, right? We're seeing the Twitter files. We're seeing all the documentation in Missouri v. Biden and that early discovery from that case. It's kind of jaw-dropping, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, to see some of this, government cooperation in the forms of nudges and threats to, invoke antitrust legislation and Section 230 penalty and all of this had to have played a massive role in what's happening. And there's no arguing that it was slanted in one direction. Sure, there were some left-leaning accounts that were actioned, as we learned yesterday in Matt Taibbi's thread. But
you could potentially argue that because you didn't necessarily see all the data, so you don't know if there was more to it that was, maybe more left-leaning accounts or fringe left-leaning accounts, whatever that may be. So we don't necessarily know. I think to me, what was most shocking in that data is the threat specifically, like or the connection, the pressure from the FBI and government agencies. I think in terms of what they were doing internally, that they can do, but the lack of transparency is what was problematic. And then kind of going into sort of new management, it's almost like, okay, how is this different? Now, I do give Elon, new management some leeway because it is early days. And so, I do find it quite chaotic, and I found it quite chaotic when he took over, though I was like hopeful for the best. And then, I think it was, I was seeing that he sort of adjusted his behavior a little bit, and then it sort of, went back. And one thing that I do find a little bit disturbing, for example, is the Mastodon, which is a terrible name for a social media platform. But anyways, like for example,
good metal band, really good metal band.
Right. So if you try to share a link to this like alternative social media platform, it gets flagged as malware.
You know why it is, though, right? You know why, right?
Well, why don't you explain? But I will say, one thing before you do that, I will say that when I posted about it, people were sort of really quick to be defensive of it, people who are supportive of admin number 2, because they said, well, he doesn't want the competition. And they sort of abandoned their critical thinking. I know, and I'll tell you, and it's good. You didn't abandon your critical thinking pathways, but my larger point is that people did. And so they're like, well, he's allowed to get rid of the competition, but obviously that's not what he's doing. annoying because, he allows lots of other links, but there's no transparency, right? He didn't make a public statement about it. There's nothing about it. He doesn't address it. But Ian, go ahead and explain why, because I think that is
And before you do that, Ian, if you don't mind, Catherine and Ian, if you can send an invite to Scam Economy, that's Matt Binder's other account, because he cannot join with his account. If that doesn't work, we'll have him join from my mic. But if you can avoid Scam Economy, so Scam as in SCAM, Scam Economy, that's his a podcast account. If you can invite that, I'll be very grateful, so we can have Matt himself here. Go ahead, Ian. Do you want to respond to Catherine?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually Ariadne. I'm going to add her. The reason why Mastodon is banned is because on the front page itself, one of the leading accounts there is the Elon Jet, and it's actually providing real-time location details for his jet. And you can verify this for yourself by Googling Mastodon. It's literally the first thing that's linked.
Okay, so Mastodon was sharing the information to
his jet.
To Elon's jet. You've got the journalist so far, and we're trying to get Matt himself to see if that's true. Matt, you're here. Matt, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are all you?
Hey, Matt.
Good. Matt, I've got a question for you, man. First, what did you share that got your account suspended?
I have no idea. They never told me.
Really?
I
find that hard to believe.
I'm being quite honest with you. I spoke with Oliver Darcy from CNN before, because he said that Donnie and who else? Donnie and Aaron Rupar and the Washington Post journalist Drew, they all received a prompt in the very beginning when they first signed in saying what tweet got them suspended. I never received any prompt. I was never asked to delete any tweet. There is a empty slot on my profile page that basically says that a tweet was removed, but I didn't remove it, I don't have any idea what tweet that was. And if you don't believe me, they all said that the second they logged into Twitter after they got unsuspended, they were asked to delete the tweet before they could say anything. I was live streaming last night as the poll was counting down, like with my screen shared, so you could see me refresh the page over and over again, because I thought it'd be fun to do because I have a YouTube following. You can see the unsuspension message just disappear from my account without any messaging, any prompt, and I tweet in real time. I have no idea what tweet it was.
I actually believe you. I actually do believe you, because that's happened to me before, where it will lock your account for whatever reason and not tell you. That is very likely a glitch. I don't think Elon did that personally. I do think that's a glitch, because I've had that happen to me multiple times.
What I think, and this is just pure speculation on my end, I'm looking at all my tweets, and they're all up. I don't recall any tweet that's missing. And, it's easy to remember what you write because you're the one typing it up. It's your ideas. I use screenshots in a lot of my tweets. I would say most of my tweets include screenshots. So I was looking through my photo library to see this is the screenshot I took for the missing tweet. Nothing's there. I think I got suspended over a retweet. And that would be crazy.
Yeah, I think so too.
That would be crazy if that's the truth, because I would not have been the only person to retweet one of those removed tweets, because the people who got...
Do we know if anyone else who retweeted it got suspended? Because I'm sure some smaller accounts might have gotten hit by that as well.
But I think I retweeted a tweet from one of those other journalists who was suspended, which means that...
Was it
which means that tweet...
the Keith Olbermann one?
No, it wasn't the Keith Olbermann one. I was suspended way before Keith Olbermann. I could tell you the order I saw the accounts go down. The first account I saw go down, based on a screenshot I saw, was the Mastodon account. And then I saw Michael Hayden of Southern Poverty Law Center tweet out that it's going down, that Anti-Fascist Blog's Twitter account, their account was nuked. I don't know what those two accounts posted, because they weren't included in that group of journalists that everyone has been...
Yeah, they're not. They didn't actually... I don't know if they actually posted anything relating to the jet. I think their suspension was actually related to something else.
But it was in that order. So I don't know, but they weren't included. But then in terms of the journalists that were suspended, I saw Donnie's tweet actually with the LAPD statement actually show up on my feed in real time. I immediately quote tweeted it because I thought it was an interesting statement from the LAPD. All I added was an emoji, like the thinking emoji. That tweet is still up too, by the way, on my account and on Donnie's account. The second I quote tweeted that tweet though, after I pressed like tweet, when it showed up on my feed, his tweet was deleted. Like it said like, oh, this user suspended. So I was like, holy shit, did he get suspended over that tweet? That would be crazy. I still had that tweet open on my phone, I guess from the cache. So I screenshotted the Donnie tweet with the LAPD statement. And I shared the screenshot and I added, I just quote tweeted this from Donnie and he got suspended immediately after. And then a few minutes passed by, maybe not even a few minutes, maybe a minute passes by and I noticed that people are saying Ryan Mack of the New York Times got suspended. I don't know what Ryan Mack posted. I grabbed a screenshot of his account being suspended. I added it to the thread right under the Donnie tweet. And then immediately after, I saw a bunch of people tweeting, Matt, I guess we're saying bye to you. And I'm like, I guess they're just assuming that because I'm very critical of Elon Musk. And the next thing I know, within maybe another minute, I can't log on. I'm done. I got the prompt that says that your account has been suspended and it's in read-only mode.
So Matt, I have two questions. First, do you think that was because we're seeing a lot of mistakes being made by Twitter now with the overhaul that's happening and the restructuring? So do you think this is a mistake similar to what happened like a few days ago? A lot of us, including me and Elon Musk's account, not many people know this, we were shadow banned. You could check it all. And many other people were being... Yeah, exactly. I was shadow banned. Elon Musk. Someone checked Elon Musk's one. Turned out he was
also
as well.
shadow banned. Yeah,
exactly.
A shadow ban and a ghost ban as well. Yeah, you got ghost
Yeah, exactly. So when I say shadow ban, I meant ghost ban. I don't know if he was shadow banned as well. Now the mistake apparently was they were cracking down on bots and obviously there's a glitch or something. Now my question for you, Matt, do you think that was intentional, or do you think that was purely a glitch? I'm leaning towards the second one. But I would love your take on it.
What being a glitch?
The suspending you. So if you retweeted a tweet, maybe the algorithm thought you tweeted it or someone spotted they thought you tweeted it, so it was a mistake. And they suspended you for that reason.
I don't think it was a glitch because I was included with those 9 individuals. I was always included with them. I'm not talking about the press. I mean, in how Elon Musk was referring to it. He asked, do you want me to suspend the journalists who he says doxed him? And when people voted yes, I was unsuspended immediately alongside Donnie.
Yeah, so I mean, didn't you retweet? Didn't you say you retweeted a tweet that doxed Elon, or did I misunderstand?
No, I don't. This is pure speculation because I don't. Listen, when you retweet something, you don't remember that the same you do as when you actually tweet your own thought. I'm just assuming, being that there's a missing tweet on my account that I can't recall posting. I'm assuming it must have been something I retweeted because it's more likely I would forget something that I just clicked a single button to hit, to retweet for.
Isn't there a website? But isn't there a website that tracks every account and all the tweets and retweets they've made?
Only if you're listed on there. Like if there's a bot tracking you, there should be an easy way to check it. But I don't know if Matt Binder's on that site. Like if Pulitzer Whoops lists a bunch of people.
I don't think I am. You could check.
So I'm looking.
I checked.
I'm looking on his feed. One sec.
Internet Archive.
It looks like the tweet violated the Twitter rules one. It looks like it's attached to the quoted tweet of the LAPD statement. It doesn't look like it's a separate tweet unless I'm reading it wrong, but it looks like it's attached to that tweet.
It does look like that, but that's the message you see when they remove a tweet. Like the tweet is supposed to appear there. That message usually appears in place of the tweet. Like the tweet gets removed and that message replaces where the tweet once sat. I've had a lot of people send me that screenshot saying it looks like it's attached to the Donnie quote tweet. I mean the Donnie screenshot. It should be removed. No, am I wrong to think that's what should have happened?
So why do you think? My last question to you, Matt. Why do you think you were suspended?
I really don't know. I wish I had an answer. I've been saying I would love for them to tell me. I mean. I think it's important for me to know, if not even just for me. I think everyone should know what got each of these journalists suspended so they don't make the same mistake. I mean, it is Elon Musk's platform. Like I'm still I haven't gone about face on what I think about how platforms are able to run because it happened to me, like some people would assume. when other people get suspended, I mean, it sucks. I agree. That's not how I would run a platform, but I'm not running Twitter. So that's their rules. That's what they, who they choose to suspend. Same thing with Musk. He's running it. He paid the money for it. I think you can call him out for saying he's going to run it one way and running it another way because that's hypocritical. I don't think he's been, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth when he says he's running a free speech, transparent platform and he's doing the opposite. I think you could call him out for that and say, that's a lie. But he can basically do whatever he wants. If he wants to suspend me, he could do that.
So why do you think, by the way, for other panelists, I'm just spending a bit extra time with Matt just because he has to jump off for an interview in a bit. So we thought we'll get his take and then we'll jump to other panelists. So I've got another question for you, Matt. You said that Elon's talking, it kind of contradicting himself in terms of being more transparent. Why? What makes you say that?
Well, let's just take this recent example. I'm not even talking about my suspension. Let's look at Elon's Jet, the Elon Jet account. And the creator, Jack Sweeney, his own account got suspended. Elon basically said last month that he was fine with the account being up. He didn't like it, but in order to roll out what he believes to be a free speech platform, an account like Elon Jet should exist if it wants to. And then now fast forward to this week, he decided to suspend the Elon Jet account, all of Jack Sweeney's other accounts, including his own personal account. And then he rolls out the new rules about location-based data. Now, Elon Musk is welcome to change his mind. He's welcome to say last month, Elon Jet is fine, and this month, I don't like it anymore. But if you're running a transparent...
With good reason, right? With good reason.
I mean...
Right?
I've got a couple of points. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead, Matt.
I think that's completely moot because, again, even if he doesn't have a good reason, who cares? He's the owner of the platform. He can change his mind and do this whenever he'd like. But if he wants to run a fair platform, how do you suspend an account for rules that you claim they violated that didn't even exist yet? Those rules about location-based data did not exist until hours after the Elon Jet account was suspended.
Don't agree with that.
So Ian, I'll let you answer that one because I know what you said. You said differently earlier. You said that the rules were always there, the doxing rules.
The rules are always there. Exactly, yeah. The doxing rules are always there. They were simply not clarified. So he added the clarification there to include it. And it's quite a surprise that the old Twitter administration didn't actually crack down on Elon Jet when they actually should have.
No,
so I'll actually lead to this.
But that's bullshit to say that because clearly, if a rule needs clarification, that means it's up to the administration in charge to decide how to rule on that particular, that particular policy. And obviously, the previous administration decided that the Elon Jet account did not break the policy as they interpreted it. If Elon Musk wants to interpret it differently, he needs to let people know. It's fine if he wants to, but he needs to let people know. Otherwise, the transparent Twitter that he's claiming it is absolute bullshit, and there's no other way you could argue that.
So, Ian, do you mind sending me if someone can send me Ian, you've got my WhatsApp. If you can send me the terms, how they were and how they've become, I'd love to read it out for the audience. Matt, I've got two questions, and I think this is important, Matt, because, Elon, by the way, Ian, you've got a bit of feedback sound. Elon's in a tricky position because, it's just that I would say he is being transparent in some ways, Matt, but, jumping into spaces, answering questions. We had Mark Andreessen here and he said, Mario, everything that Elon's telling you guys, it's exactly the same stuff we discussed behind the scenes. And we tell him to stop talking about these things openly. So in some ways being transparent, but what you're saying in that maybe in this case, he acted a bit out of emotions because it involved his family. And that kind of overruled.
He absolutely did. That's exactly what happened. Again, it's understandable, but it goes contrary to how he claims he's going to run the
understand.
platform.
Yeah. It's a fair point. So I want to kind of stress on this point a bit further. Would you say that doxing someone's live location is a risk?
If you're doxing someone's live location as if you're tracking the actual person, then yes, I would agree. But that's not what the Elon Jet account does. It tracks the airplane.
So fair point, but it tracks the airplane knowingly when Elon is using it. It's Elon's private airplane, so he's only using it. Is there anyone else that uses that plane?
Well, he said it himself that he wasn't with his family when apparently this thing happened that he says has happened. And he's how would he have been?
So would you say that? So Would you agree that's a bit murky? So you make a point, like he's tracking the plane, not Elon personally, but it could be interpreted as if it's Elon's plane and he's using private data. Elon tweeted, in one of Elon's tweets, he said, you cannot track the plane with publicly available information. So that kind of changes things because he's getting private information, which Elon paid not to disclose the location of his jet. To be able to
I can't argue this specific point because I'm not a aviation expert, but from what I understand, these are things that are said, even like that private number that he uses. These are numbers that are used over these airwaves that are open for anyone to listen to. So apparently it's openly shared. It just makes it a little bit harder for someone to find out, but it is still out there.
I'll add one last point and then I'll go to other panelists. So I just do want to, and you do confirm that having someone's exact location live is a risk. So if, for example, when I travel, I'll give you an example. When I travel, there's some countries when I travel to, because I'm deep in crypto, and in crypto, you know how a lot of people get kidnapped because of the private key, etc. Some countries I travel to, I always travel anonymously. I book a hotel anonymously. That's a fee, so that's an option you have in some hotels. So they don't disclose your name to anybody that asks. You don't exist.
And you can still track it though. If you know where to look and you know who to ask, you can still track it.
Yeah, so
that's the issue with it. Yeah, so it's like it's publicly available if you know the right people, right? And that's exactly what Elon Jet was essentially doing.
But Matt, would you say that? Go ahead.
I was going to say, me personally, what I find to be the important part of Elon Jet. I honestly never really looked at it didn't interest me. I'm not someone who's interested in aviation and where Elon Musk is traveling to and from. To me, the interesting part about Elon Jet is how often he flies and how far that is. Because to me, the point of calling that out is that here's a guy who makes his money off apparently a green-friendly company, Tesla, and here he is flying around his private jet all the time. I don't really care where he actually goes. Like, it could be any city, USA, any city worldwide. To me, the interesting thing is how far he travels and how often. So, I mean, to me, I'm just giving you my opinion on what I think is the important, the newsworthiness of the Elon Jet account.
I'm going to read the policy before I go to Ian. Do you mind if I go to Tracy? I know, Tara, if you still want to speak. I know you had your hand up earlier and you can jump in at any time, Tara. This is your room as much as it's ours. But Tara, Tracy, Tom. Okay, so I want to say one last thing and then we go to Tara, Tracy, and Tom, whoever wants to go first. But Matt, I'm going to read out the policy for you, Matt, and let me know if you agree with my conclusion from what I'm about to read out. So this is the policy before Elon added the clarification. That's the first screenshot you sent me, Ian. So the first time you violate this policy by sharing private information, brackets, such as home address, which you can say, hey, I'm tracking the home address, identity documents, etc. Would you, I'm not telling you to agree with the decision that Elon made, but would you agree that, because I'm also split, like I understand where you're coming from as well, Matt, but would you agree based on this that it is fair, I'm not saying it's right, but it is fair to say that a jet could be included under that, etc., as private information similar to a home address? Is that a fair point to make? Because I'm leaning towards that side of the argument, that it's maybe he didn't handle it correctly, should have done it, I don't know, maybe differently. I don't know about that, but would you agree that the private jet could be considered private information such as a home address?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, in my own personal opinion, I don't think so. But again, I'm not the one who wrote those rules. I don't know what they had in mind. Like that's good. Like there's going to be no answer to that. It's just we could only go by what actions were actually done, and the fact that Twitter, that existed before Elon Musk, allowed this account under their rules. I mean, that proves more than anything else we can argue that they didn't feel like it broke their rule.
But I think a lot of people jump in here, and I can feel a few people boiling, so I'll say it on their behalf. They'll probably say, hey, what are you talking about? We just had all these Twitter files prove that a lot of the decisions were biased to the left, which means that many liberal accounts may get more leniency. I'm not saying that you did get more leniency. Maybe the previous administrators didn't think a private jet was private information.
It's a private
now it's being
jet.
interpreted
It's
differently.
in the name.
Fair point. Fair. I'm leaning towards that as well, Ian. I think I would agree it is private. Like if I was in Elon's shoes, or even now, if someone knows I'm traveling from one country to another, I never post my stories as I'm going somewhere.
It's called a private jet because it's not a jet that you could buy a ticket for. It's not like like a private jet, like it's a secret undercover jet. I mean, we don't call our own cars a private car because most people
Well, we call
would
it private
either use
transport.
public
That's what
transportation.
it is.
No one calls
It's
it private
transport.
But I think
So I don't
Matt's
think it's okay to track people like that.
yeah. But
I mean,
I
you
think
can literally track any car if you have a person trailing it, right? It's in public, so you could make the very silly argument. I'm not saying you're making this argument, but a person could ostensibly make a silly argument in that, well, a car's driving out on a public road, so therefore it's okay to track it, and yet it's illegal to actually do that.
Yes, I would say Matt, and I do want to go to other panelists, but I just want to end it with if you follow someone's car, for example, hey, I'm not tracking the person, even though that's their private car. I'm not tracking the person, I'm tracking their car, but they're in that car. So I think, again, I'm not talking about the way it was handled because I don't know how it was handled. I didn't look at all the tweets, but I just think logically speaking, tracking a private jet, someone's private jet live, and instead of sharing the information 5, 10, 30 minutes later, could be considered doxing. I don't think it's too unfair. I'm not saying everyone would agree with it, but I don't think it's too unfair, and I think it's been blown out of proportion, in my opinion, after I saw the Wikipedia article. That's my 2 cents, and I'd love you to stay on because I know that.
Can I just address that one part, and then we can move to
go
something?
ahead, bro.
I would say the biggest difference is, your jet never leaves what essentially is a public airport. You don't drive your jet to your home. You don't drive your jet, you don't park the jet in your driveway. You don't bring the jet to your local mechanic. It stays in a public area or a hangar, which is a completely different thing too. It never goes to your private residence. So simply based on that, it would be impossible to track someone to where they sleep at night based on where their jet is sitting.
I'll go to other panel. I think they're still in the jet. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a quick point? I just think, aren't we having sort of it's like the wrong argument in my mind, like whether he was justified or not. I mean, you can argue both sides, and I think everybody's made good points. To me, it's sort of a question of Twitter before Musk and Twitter after Musk, right? And before Musk, you had a system that didn't have a lot of transparency, but you had a bunch of people trying to make these decisions who were accountable to their CEO, who was accountable to the board, who was accountable to shareholders. The company was accountable to advertisers, and those advertisers were accountable to their customers, right? There's all these layers of accountability. And now you have one person running a system where there's also very little transparency, and he's accountable to no one. And I think that's the difference in my mind.
I think we're missing the argument completely. We have journalists, right? Journalists are on this space to talk about the journalist aspect of it. From an ethics standpoint, ethically, what value is it for a journalist to amplify and pinpoint the location of somebody's private plane to however many people will be consuming said news product? There's an ethical debate to be had about that. Forget the technicality of it.
I answered that question though about what my own personal opinion is on the importance of that account. I said I don't care. In terms of me, I wouldn't report on where Elon Musk was traveling to and from if I used.
So do you think it's wrong? Matt, do you think it's wrong that they use pinpointed location? Because I can agree, I can see the point of what you're saying where it makes sense to kind of share the other data of what you're saying. I think there can be a case made for the newsworthiness of that, but I don't think that a case can be made for the pinpointed locations or the real-time data of that. I don't think that made sense.
What he's talking about isn't suspendable.
I think we're conflating things, though. As far as I know, there isn't any journalist who wrote, articles tracking Elon Musk via, where he was flying. What the newsworthy part here was, and you would ask Jack Sweeney, the creator of the Elon Jet account, but I don't think this 20-year-old considers himself a journalist, which means the ethics question does not work to him.
But they were sharing, links to that specific account that really didn't have news value, right? When a journalist writes an article about it, that's different than sharing that link where he's really trying to sort of sidestep intentionally kind of the rules. And he is, even when I was in that space that got, shut down or dropped or whatever, even the journalists in that space, I think, were pretty aware that what he was trying to do was, not in good faith.
I mean, I think Elon Musk made that account newsworthy. He, we could say the tri-stand effect or whatever, but he did. There was no one talking about that account really until Elon Musk had a problem with it. And yeah, I'm sorry, a billionaire having a problem, a billionaire who runs the platform that he's like this big platform, banning this account is it's newsworthy. And people were right.
Well, I would
What's the
add,
value of that,
I would
Ian, though?
interrupt. I would say that, linking to the Elon Jet account, if you're writing an article about Elon Jet, is very similar to linking to Kiwi Farms or to a Kiwi Farms thread if you're writing a story about it. And I don't think it's necessary for any reader to be linked to, a Kiwi Farms thread, right? I mean, this was a topic that was actually written about by Ben Collins, right? Ben Collins wasn't one of the people who got suspended because he didn't link to Elon Jet, but, he made a pretty good argument in his article of why this site is a danger and what it can cause, the harm it can cause to people. So he never actually linked to Kiwi Farms, and he was reporting on that. So I don't see why journalists feel that it's okay to link to Elon Jet's Facebook page or his Mastodon page or the Elon Jet website directly, especially when they wouldn't do the same thing for Kiwi Farms, right? I mean, they recognize there is a danger to linking to Kiwi Farms.
I think that's definitely an interesting argument. I would counter that with there's an interesting, there is interest there in the fact that this material that Elon Musk has deemed should not be allowed on his platform. Every other social media platform that is in that same industry, that same realm, the ones you just mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, they've all decided that, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. I think that's a very newsworthy aspect of it, that Twitter alone is decided that this isn't worthy of being posted on the site. And it just so happens that this one policy is based on the fact that it directly affected the owner of it. I mean,
can you discuss it without linking to it, though? Can you discuss by describing it? Like, I'm kind of thinking, for example, there was the Sony leaks a while back, right? Like a few years back, there was the Sony leaks.
Yeah, 2013.
That was lots of, right. So that was a while ago, and there was a lot of like really private data in that. If news, you could say that was of interest, right? Like to share these files, and some did share these files or the locations of where you can download that, and some did not. And that was a huge privacy issue. So like, at what point do we draw the line of what is acceptable versus how you can just talk about it in a descriptive way as a journalist and make the case of, in a way that you describe it to your audience? Like that's the role of a journalist, no?
No, I think that's a good point too. But I mean, just simply the fact that this data is available everywhere in terms of like, Kiwi Farms, you can only go to Kiwi Farms to get it. The fact that all these other mainstream platforms have decided there's nothing wrong with this, I mean, it means that a lot of people probably share that belief that there's nothing wrong with sharing this data. I think to compare it to Kiwi Farms isn't really an accurate sort of measurement. In terms of the Sony hacks, I don't know what was in those documents. Were they not shared because I can't recall. Was there like email addresses and or home addresses or private phone numbers? I don't know what the reason for that was. But I mean, you would have to look at each individual, aspect of whatever situation we're talking about before we can really decide.
So I have a quick question for anyone. The accounts that had accounts that were suspended from journalists,
I gotta jump
did they have a link to?
I got to jump.
Yeah, all good, man.
I'll come back
I know you have an interview. Cool. Yeah, no, we just have Katie. Matt. Katie just jumped on as well. Appreciate you, Matt, and I've got you on WhatsApp, so you're always welcome, Matt. Tara dropped off. Let me bring her up, and Katie's back up as well. Katie, how are you? Can you hear me? Just making sure your mic is there, Katie. I guess I'll ping her. But just question, Ian, maybe you can answer that one, or Alex, or whoever. The journalistic accounts that were suspended, did they link to the Mastodon or whatever, the other platform that had Elon Jet? Is that why they were suspended? Or what did they link to exactly, Alex?
If you look on the second pinned tweet that I have, not the first one, in the space, I thought a lot of them, I think this is why Keith Olbermann got suspended, so he tweeted, "Here's the plan. Everyone retweet the screenshot of the tweet that got Drew Harrell of the Washington Post suspended and recreate the tweet word for word with the link. And link to the Aaron Rupar piece that got him permanently suspended."
There's malicious intent behind this. That's the problem. There's malicious intent.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons that some did. And again, that's one of the things I'd like to see changed about Twitter. And Elon replied to my tweet about this is when accounts are suspended. I think, well, number one, if it's temporary, it should tell you how long the suspension is to the public, and also it should tell the public the reason on that actual account, like, because that eliminates a lot of the, okay, why is this person suspended? Because if you go to their page, it will tell you exactly why the account was suspended, and then also like a note on the account itself. This is the violating tweet, and you should be able to view it if you so choose, as long as there's no illegal information in there. But yeah, I to the point about like the actual policy, I think the issue was the fact that it was updated after the action was taken against the ElonJet account. I believe the way to go about this should have been the update should have been announced, and then the ElonJet account should have been locked to prevent any future information to be, like, real-time information to be posted, and they should have been informed of the new policy and saying you have to have 24 hours before you can post a new real-time jet information, or 24 hours should be elapsed before you post it, because he had a bot, and I believe you could set like a delay. And when he was actually reinstated for like an hour, and he said that he was willing to abide by those terms. So I believe the correct way to do it would have been that. But I feel like that's what happened was, there was a lot of confusion around that because the policy was updated after the suspension.
I have one more thing to say, and then I'm going to step back for a while because I've been talking quite a bit today, and thank you for the floor, guys. I think that it's really poignant that we're having this hour-and-a-half-long conversation right now about the banning of journalists now, because this never happened before, and I think it's a really big step in the right direction. There was never such concern about journalists being banned before this action was taken. I think there were valid reasons for it, and I think that journalists, tend to abuse the doxing policy in general from an ethical standpoint. If there's not newsworthiness to providing somebody's home address, and even then I would really err on the side of caution, because you can create a lot of problems for people. Look, something literally happened to Elon's son. And you have no control over how people are going to act. And if there's no additional benefit to adding this, a link to real-time information about somebody's location, if you're going to write about how far he travels, you don't need to link to the real-time location of the person. And so kudos for us having the conversation. I'm glad so many people care about it now. It's a breath of fresh air. And thanks for letting me have some space to speak for a while.
Thanks, Tracy. Tara, Tom?
Hey, yeah,
Hey, Tara.
I don't know if hey guys, good job and nice balanced panel up here. I think this is really good, and so many adults in the room, not speaking over each other and keeping it flowing nicely, which is incredible, especially because I know, it's pretty half and half up here, I would say. And so, well done to all of you. Really quick, just to add on to what Tracy was just saying, which welcome back, Tracy, by the way, all those years. And yeah, now finally people do care, which is just amazing. It's funny how Elon sort of has a way of magically doing these things and then kind of saying, like he tweeted recently, fate loves irony. And that's exactly what this is it's so ironic. But what I was going to mention, and I'm babysitting my nieces today and just thinking out loud here, just about the fact that, because the billionaire word keeps getting tossed around. And I know, maybe I watch too many movies, but I would say like a billionaire's son is probably a little more at risk as it is, of having, nefarious things potentially happening, God forbid. And, potential, I don't know, anything, but to track that child or any child real time, I think should be against obviously Twitter rules and should be against the law. And that's essentially what was happening. So, I think Tracy already sort of made that point. And I just wanted to commend her and say, welcome back. And I followed you, and it's awesome to have you guys, all of these accounts being reinstated. Is there any way to get Mike Lindell in here?
I'll try to get him in. Hold on, Alex, do you know Michael?
Ian
maybe does.
I can try. Ian might have a better connect to him, but I have one of his connections, so I can try.
I can ask.
Yeah.
I can ask my connection.
Yeah, well, just send me the handle, Ian, and I'll
it's
send
real
you
Mike
from
Lindell. It's real Mike
cool.
Lindell. Well, he doesn't need to join this one though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, I'll give you the mic, and Tom, maybe I'll let you say your word. But I also have a question for you, Tom, about the way this has handled. Do you think Elon was a bit emotional about the way he handled it, or it was well done business processes, objective, no emotions?
Well, I don't know whether he was emotional about it. The question is the policy a sensible one given what happened? And the answer is yes. Did he? Well, let me take a step back. Tracy, it's good to hear your voice. I'm glad you're back.
Thanks, Tom.
And as everyone can hear, she's an important voice to have, and you can see why she was censored. What a scam we're all being subjected to here. And with all due respect to who was on earlier, was it Matt?
Matt.
I don't know why it was censored. Oh, wait, maybe it was because I retweeted his personal location data.
Well, he
That
said
everyone
he did not
knew
do
at the
that.
time, everyone knew and was on notice was not appropriate material to be tweeting out. Now, the question is, are we going to allow Elon Musk to be subject or not have any of the protections any other public figure or citizen or regular Joe should have, which is the ability to go to a private location without being doxxed in a way that puts his life in jeopardy and his family's life in jeopardy? That's the debate here. And the question is, and I'm more disappointed in him bringing him on as quickly as he did than taking them off. Are journalists going to get, or left-wing journalists specifically, going to get another exception to the rules of law and the rules of civilization, which is they get the dox? And if they're screamed loud enough about being punished over it through a legitimate process, or maybe even a process that's imperfect but was good faith, they get a pass. Right now, people like Tracy Beans has been suppressed. Judicial Watch continues to be censored. I know that material from the New York Times continues to be censored on Twitter as we speak because it talks about the wrong issues and because I tweeted it out. So the idea that the media is concerned about the First Amendment is bunk. They are concerned about the ability to exercise their power and target their political enemies without consequence, without having to adhere to any rules that any normal person would feel obligated to follow. So these guys, they all broke the rule. Some of them may have plausible deniability, saying, look, my intent was just to kind of get the story going, and I was looking for clicks, right? I didn't have any malintent here. I appeal the ruling here, and I'll take it down or whatever, or I disagree, and I'm not going to remove it, and that's the consequence. But the
Tom, what do
question
you think
is it wrong?
Matt's defense? Like, for example, Matt said that he did not retweet any links or anything like that. He personally did not do that, and he doesn't think that, in his case, he doesn't necessarily believe that helps his story. So he didn't
said
do
he
that.
wasn't sure. He did not say that. He said he wasn't sure what he retweeted, which is bizarre.
I think he allowed the notion that he retweeted a link to this real-time location data of Elon Musk and his family. And so the question is that journalism? Is that what the New York Times thinks is okay? Is that what these bloggers or these online influencers think is okay? I mean, someone like Rupert, who is, in my view, dishonest and unethical, I have no doubt he thinks it's okay. He keeps on saying it's okay. So everyone be warned. These folks, some of them at least, will dox you, and they don't care about the safety or security of your family. And I guess Zuckerberg doesn't care about it, and I guess Google doesn't care about it, so that makes it right, according to some of what we heard earlier today. So I don't know. Is that a rule that's legitimate to prevent people from having their private location data put out in a public way that could cause them serious bodily injury?
I want to go to Katie, and Ariadna has a great story that I'd love
Before
her
I
to
do,
share.
I have to share what Philibonte said to me, and I completely 100% agree with him. Right? It's Phil that remains. If you guys don't follow him, you should. He said, you all know the point was to intimidate Elon Musk. The fact it's being discussed as if it's about free speech, when the whole point is intimidation. And I absolutely agree with that. the only reason, right? The only ostensible reason to share that link is to intimidate Elon Musk. There's nothing else, right? It's not a free speech issue. It's a threat.
Who was that, Ian? Who said that? I'm going to follow him.
It's a Phil Labonte, at Phil That Remains, the lead singer for All That Remains. Great guy. You might have seen him on Tim Pool's show a couple of times this past week.
Thanks.
I'm just going to retweet him.
I'm
and
muted.
I'll put his tweet in the.
If you can pin it above, and going to Tom's question,
just
because I know, so Ariadna has a great story that I would like her to share in a bit. But before that, Katie, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me on. I'm sorry, I'm joining a little bit late, so I apologize. I missed the beginning of this.
Pleasure to have you, and I appreciate you joining. So I know that you did a space not a while ago, like a couple of days ago, and I think the accounts that were suspended found a way to join your space, and that got it got everyone very excited. Even I jumped in to listen a bit, and I saw Elon jump in and then jump out after a few minutes. So I would like you to tell us what happened there, what the story was, and I'd love your take on Tom's question and Tom's perspective about this.
Sure. So I guess at first, my understanding with the space is that, and sort of this weird loophole is that I think that the space feature is essentially built off Periscope, which used to be a separate app. And so accounts that had created a Periscope app before Periscope was bought and merged into Twitter were sort of, on the back end treated as a completely separate account. And that's why suspension on twitter.com did not apply to these Periscope level accounts. And that's how they were able to join this space. And I think that what ended up happening was that this is, again, I'm guessing that when people at Twitter realized this happened, people who work at Twitter realized this was happening and they understood the sort of underlying dynamics of why this was able to get on, they sort of just chopped down the whole feature to try and fix it, which I think is what happened.
So technically, Katie, hold on. So you're the one I need to blame for Twitter Spaces crashing yesterday and forcing us to do a Twitter video live. Got it. Good. Right. So I'm going to blame you for that. Perfect.
And I think what probably happened, again, I am guessing here based on sort of the clues of knowing a little bit that there was the Periscope integration. So my account, I think they had to ban my account on a Periscope level in order to shut down the space the other night, which meant that when they brought it back up, my account was still banned only from Spaces, not from Twitter. And then they obviously I'm back. So they fixed that. But it is, Twitter is a confusingly operated platform. And if Elon Musk can get it to run a lot better, then that's wonderful.
Now my question, the question I have, I was unmuting. The question I have for you, Katie, is, Tom made some good points. Other panelists made some good points as well. What's your take on this? Do you think that was a fair suspension? Not saying you agree with it, but I'm just saying, because it could be either on one extreme, hey, this is completely wrong, or this is completely right, 100% fair, and somewhere in the middle. Would you say that one is somewhere in the middle? There's grounds to suspend the accounts, but maybe it was handled too swiftly, as Alex was saying, or could have been handled differently?
Yeah. So I think sort of 10,000 foot view, since we're talking about a plane tracker, I think moderation works best when it's clear and consistent and people kind of have an idea of what the rules are. And if someone else is out there breaking the rules, great, suspend them. And a platform has the right to make up and change and should change to benefit its users good moderation rules that are appropriate and keep people safe, whether or not, a flight tracker of a famous person should or should not be allowed is I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds I think a lot of people think it's a kind of a coin flip, right? Some people think sure, some people think no. I think there's a very strong case to, ban flight trackers. I don't have a problem with that. I think that there's a clear reason to do that. Fine. It's a safety thing. I think that what made things very confusing was that this all happened very fast, right? So it had been made, Elon had made it clear the flight tracker I'm okay with until the moment that he didn't. And then that was banned. And I think that it probably wasn't clear to people that all of a sudden, Snap now the flight tracker is banned. And if you even link to the Facebook page for the flight tracker, that can get you banned. Even though Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg might think it's fine. Who knows who knows if they will continue to do so. I think that whether or not linking out to stuff that if Twitter determines linking out to even anything related to something that we Twitter believe is doxing, and we believe that flight trackers are doxing, if that's their consistent rule, like, okay, we can all live with a consistent rule, right? Like, I think there's plenty of moderation rules that obviously not everyone has always agreed with. But if you can kind of get a sense of what the rules are, fine. I think that what happened there, what was such a kerfluffle was that it wasn't clear, I think, to anyone that even a link to the old, flight or an article or something, and I don't know exactly what all the supposed links that were happening, whether it was a retweet or they just, did the @ symbol for it. I think that no one would have thought that because it was totally fine the day before. I think that's the trick.
And I want to clarify. I want to clarify what you mean by that. So just to be clear for anyone that doesn't know, I heard this from somewhere else as well. So if it's not true, someone please correct me. But Elon did say initially, I think before or just after he acquired Twitter, that he's not even banning the Elon Jet. Before, so he's not banning Elon Jet. So
and this is before he got all the threats to his.
Correct. So like the question there would be, and it's a fair question, like, did he change his mind just because he thinks the policy and Twitter itself?
I don't know. I mean, we can't read his mind, can we? We can't read his mind. And
yeah,
so the platform, his choice, he has and this is what Matt said, he has a right to change his mind. So I don't think there's anything to be really said about this topic.
We'd love to hear Katie.
Can I read a tweet? Can I read a threatening tweet that was written?
Yeah, I will do. And Katie will come back to you. I know I interrupted you, Katie, so we'll go back to you in a bit. Yeah, go ahead, Tara.
It says, I'm not even sure what it means, and maybe Ian does know, but it says, in a response to Elon Musk, it says, activating one of our deep sleep INLA sleeper agents in LA to rig some semtex to his Tesla. Who the F's going to question it blowing up? These are real threats that are happening to Elon Musk and his family, who he is doing everything in his power to protect. And anyone else here, if you were in charge of a platform, you would not platform people who are sharing your real-time location and your child's real-time location in order for people like this to potentially do something like that to you or your children. So no one here has any valid argument. And that's why Ian's right. Like this whole, we're going to read Elon's mind and figure out what changed. That's what changed. These threats are real. And to sit here and act like, oh, it's just the internet. Oh, that's just what happens. No, it's not. It maybe to one of us. Yeah, maybe. But to him, and none of us can say we know or have experienced that, can we? None of us can say we've had our real-time location shared.
Of real-life stalkers. I've had real-time stalkers, real-life stalkers, not real-time stalkers. Real-life stalkers.
And they knew your location?
They knew my location. Yeah, they went to my city and tried to harass me there. So, yeah, I'm very familiar with this sort of thing. Yeah, I know. I had to call the police on them. So, yeah.
Journalists do this all the time to everyday regular people that they just decide they don't like too. And it's unethical and it's terrible. There's been plenty of examples. People have popped up on Twitter with their personal stories of, major publications allowing their journalists to publish articles with their actual details in them and the repercussions they felt because of those, strictly because they might have had a political difference with them or they wanted to harm them in some way. I'm just making the point that journalistically, it's ethically irresponsible to do this when it's not necessary. There's zero reason to amplify something like that as a journalist. If an everyday, if a person wants to retweet something, there's a different argument, I think, to be made. But from a journalist perspective, I think it's irresponsible to do.
Well, Katie, what do you think from a... Hold on.
Sorry. Okay, you go first. Because I want you to get Ariadne's input on this because she has...
Yeah, I think that'd be good. So that'd be good for, right after. So I'm just curious, Katie, just from a human perspective, from just like, as a human being kind of going from these, Elon sort of responding to potential threats, whether, the car, there's some debate of whether, specifically the car, the coordinates of the car, were connected to the plane or not, but just, clearly he wouldn't have taken these actions if he did not feel that there was some threat from publishing the coordinates of the jet. Like otherwise, why even bother with all of this, right? So he did feel that it was a threat. So it must have been a threat or presented some
Someone
sort of.
jumped on the. Wait, Catherine, you're aware that someone jumped on like the car that his
No,
son
no,
was
no.
riding in?
No, I know, but some people have made the argument that that's not connected necessarily to the jet. But regardless, like the jet itself, somebody could have followed from the jet, could have followed the car that was picking up. Like we don't know exactly how that happened, right? So clearly the jet coordinates do present some sort of safety security issue. So even if his perspective is that he changed his mind because of that personal concern for his child's safety, and I know I have confirmation that it does present this all did occur. What's your perspective on the fact that amplifying this information does put a child at risk and that his actions are motivated by, concern for his child? Just like, what's your sort of human reaction to that?
I mean, are you asking if like I think he should be concerned for his child? Like, sure, of course.
Well, if his actions are justifiable by that concern for a child, like if you were in the same boat, what actions would you have taken in that situation?
That's impossible for me to imagine what I would have done. In a million, I have not enough imagination for that. But I think speaking to why there was such a strong reaction about the journalist being banned is not that I think people are sympathetic to the idea of a parent being concerned for their family. Sure, that's like, of course, but that's not the only thing that's at hand necessarily. And I think that I would love a platform where any sort of risk of doxing or abuse is, moderated out as much as possible. And I think what is sort of surprising is that he has indicated before that, he would intend on policies that would do less of that for, regular users. And then, just as far as the journalists being banned, I think that there was a little bit of, it's not whether or not the journalists were trying to, amplify danger towards a small child. Like, that's not quite it. I think it's that, the actual sort of actions of it were a little foggy. You know what I mean?
Katie, do you have children? I'm just curious.
I'm glad you actually couldn't hear them yelling in the background. That makes me
okay. So you do. So I was just curious, of the perspective
I don't
there.
think you have to have children to feel empathy for not wanting your family to be in danger, right? Like,
absolutely.
So I get that. I understand that. I don't think that the totality of the discussion here is whether or not Elon should, has the right to be worried about his family. Like, of course he does. I don't think
my question came because I was going to ask you if someone was posting your real-time location or your child's real-time location, how you would feel about that.
I mean, I wouldn't like it, right? Like, I don't think anybody would. Like, that seems pretty reasonable. Like, did you did you expect I would?
Well, let's be clear here, though. The debate about this was in terms of the attacks on Elon Musk over the censorship or these bans the suggestion is that he censored these folks because they were critical of him. And there's no evidence of that. And if there's no evidence of that, so what's happening is he did something. He tried to enforce a rule, however, in artfully or imperfectly, it was made in good faith and obviously would make sense to most people. And instead he's being attacked as if he was doing something inappropriate as some sort of neo-fascist running this corporation. When in fact, he was trying to protect his family and allowing these individuals potentially to get back on the site within reason. Let's be clear here. The left relies on doxing to intimidate their political opposition. They want to keep on being able to do it. And they got angry when Musk said no.
And I don't agree that
And
the
that's
left
what
is
this debate's about.
necessarily relying. I don't think that that's necessarily an accurate way of painting it either. But I think that the way, like, I have one foot in and one foot out with this whole conversation, because I do, like, for example, I don't think there was journalistic merit to posting like the links to these like alternative places where one can follow the jet. I don't think there's justification to it. You can certainly report on the story. That's different. But I think, so what I take issue with is the lack of transparency and consistency in how the suspensions were sort of enforced. So I think that's valid to sort of criticize. But I think when people were criticizing it, I think there's also a lot of bad faith that was coming from, saying that a lot of the narrative was also that Elon was doing it because, these journalists, he's banning all these journalists because they criticized him, because that's not the case. There's lots of people criticizing him, lots of journalists criticizing him. I've criticized him and, not banned. So that I think is a very unfair characterization. I think our allegiance, especially as journalists, has to be to the truth and nothing but the truth. So I think two things are sort of conflated. So I think we can have empathy and sympathy for the situation he's in and sort of be honest about it. You can also criticize some of the actions or the way that he sort of implemented maybe the suspensions and sort of the lack of clarity around that, and maybe the lack of clarity around changing the rules, which is why I've sort of insisted that he put those formally in the TOS when he was tweeting about it. But at the same time, I think you also have to be really honest about and not allow, because I don't think journalists are motivated necessarily by sort of leftist ideology all the time. I think it's also just, by kind of weaponizing the doxing. I think
Catherine, really quick,
I think we're speaking in circles here.
Ariadna has to
Ariana
hop
wants
off.
to. Yeah, she has
She's
to hop
got to
off.
get on a plane.
Let her ask a question at Katie. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Hey, Katie, how's it going? I listened to your space, and I just have some questions for you and anyone else that was in that space. I heard, I think it was Drew Harwell and Ben Collins and others mentioned that, Elon is a public figure and that he has the means to protect himself with security against doxing, against what may happen after, his flight is being tracked. With security and all that, and that often the most vulnerable people do not have the same privileges as he does, and they should be the ones protected by Twitter's rules. So yesterday I posted the screenshots and receipts of when Taylor Lorenz asked me for the address of the content houses that I managed, said they weren't for publication, and then proceeded to publish a Zillow link in the New York Times to the address anyway. The one she said she wasn't going to publish, while I was living there. And Elon responded saying that kind of shameful behavior will not be tolerated any longer. My question is, why does Taylor Lorenz not only get a pass from other journalists like yourself for her, in my opinion, shameful, unethical behavior against non-political, non-powerful minority women, but she gets painted as a victim of misogyny and harassment? And when there's evidence of her blatant unethical behavior, why is linking to my private address relevant to her story in the New York Times? And why do the journalists in the mainstream media seem to consider her such an expert leader in social media, technology? Aren't there hundreds of other talented journalists who don't operate like her? And sort of, yeah. So I just wanted to hear what you had to say on that.
I'm sorry. What is the question? What do I think about Taylor Lorenz?
My question is, why
Why
and
does she get a
compared
free
to
pass and other people don't? Yeah, why does Taylor Lorenz
yeah,
get a free pass and other people don't? And
and you guys were
I know
talking
you can
about
only speak for yourself, right?
private, yeah.
Like Katie, you can only speak for yourself. But what is your opinion personally? Like, obviously you can't speak for other people, but why do you think she gets a pass but other people don't? What's so special about her? That's the question.
So I'm not familiar with the story you're describing with the Zoe link. So I without knowing more of the details on that, I really cannot have any opinion about that. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, is her linking? So, is her asking us a source for an address, saying that it's not public info, it's not going to be published, then proceeding to publish it anyway of a private citizen? Why is that okay?
Like I said, I don't know this story, and
Let's just say hypothetically, just hypothetically, let's say.
I don't know this story. I don't know the details, so I'm not going to answer
Adriana.
that.
To be fair, that is a tough one to address with Katie not having the knowledge and speaking about a third person.
Well, I heard Katie bring her up to the space and say, "Hey, Taylor, you may have a lot to add because you're a victim of harassment, but are you aware that Taylor harasses other people and she's got hundreds of thousands of followers."
Ariadna, I've got a great idea. I'm gonna send you my number, and we could do a space. We'll bring Taylor on as well. I think it'll be a great discussion to have, and have her and yourself on if you like, if you're open for it. I'll try to convince her to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate it. I mean, I kind of heard Katie and the others sort of, to me, it just seemed like being very empathetic to people like journalists like Taylor. I'm just wondering if they're empathetic to just private citizens.
Yeah, so, Taylor is sort of an example of someone because she is a high-profile person on Twitter. She has been a victim of a lot of harassment and abuse, and I think, like other people mentioned, real-life stalkers that are kind of scary. And so are a lot of not high-profile people. There are many, many people over the course of Twitter's history that have been victims of harassment, stalking, abuse via the platform.
Like
I
Lips
think
TikTok
that
was
is
a victim
bad.
of Taylor Lorenz.
Sorry, what's that?
I said Lips of TikTok, Chaya Raychik, was doxxed by Taylor Lorenz. Do you agree that's bad?
So that was an article in a newspaper, not something on Twitter.
Yeah, I know, but do you agree that it's bad for her to dox Chaya, who was, for all intents and purposes, a very pseudonymous account whose name was private?
That's I'm sort of talking about moderation issues that are happening on Twitter, the platform for thousands and thousands of regular, non-verified, low-profile users. Not like an article in a national magazine. Or
I want to jump back, if we could, Mario, to this issue. The first account that, the plane tracking account initially shut down or suspended, that's one issue. Once that happened, everyone on Twitter was on notice. Sharing such material, certainly any user of sophisticated nature that we're talking about now, it was on notice that sharing or linking to such material could get you suspended.
I don't think that's true.
This is not the rule. The rule became. Let me finish my point. I'm a pretty stupid guy, and I've been using Twitter long enough to know that echoing or pointing to material that gets someone suspended from Twitter can get you suspended from Twitter. Those journalists or activists were on notice, so I don't think there was a lack of clarity here. They knew what they were doing. There was an effort by media journalists to try to get around the ban, protecting Musk and his family. They knew the ban was there, and they tried to get around it by linking to material that they knew was prohibited under the rules, and rightfully so prohibited.
Tom, from my perspective,
can I just say something real fast? I just think I don't think I agree with that, because when Trump was banned for his tweets, and if journalists linked to any of his tweets, they wouldn't have been banned for it. And there's plenty of other incidents. I know Trump didn't have a specific tweet he was banned for, but there have been plenty of instances where people have been banned for
he wasn't banned for his tweets.
No,
He
I
wasn't
know
banned for
that
his
was a bad
tweets.
example, but there's been plenty of tweets where people were
That's
banned
not
for a
true.
tweet.
I mean,
There
look,
has been plenty of
if you,
tweets where people can I just finish real fast? There have
yeah,
been
go ahead.
plenty of tweets, like let's say, for example, Laura Loomer. She was banned for her anti-Muslim tweet, and there are plenty of outlets that reported on that tweet, and they didn't embed the tweet, but they posted her quote. Isn't that the same thing?
Maybe, but not the same as linking to the exact account that was actually performing the same function at issue here. There's a big difference between linking
I
to
think
the
it's where you
account.
draw a line. I think
I mean that account was doing something unknowingly at that time in violation of the rules. Those folks who were doing it, they knew the account was doing something that Twitter said was putting someone at risk, and they linked to it anyway. So, some people call that journalism. I think these are activists who sometimes do journalism. And now I guess they get to do what they want. And, the rest of us, though, we have to follow
So I'd
Danner
like
rules.
to add,
I think it would have been better.
I'd like to hear
final
from
point.
Katie. I think Katie had something to say about this.
Hey, can I just finish?
Just sort of, Tom, what you were saying about
we'll go.
how...
So, Katie, I'll let you finish. Ed, you'll finish your point. I know you're trying to finish your point, and then we'll go to Christy as well, because I know Christy's been waiting. Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
So that you thought that the journalists, once the Elon Jet account was banned, that they knew that they couldn't link to it, and that was willful ban evasion. So, and that they understood the rules. And like you said, like, I've been on Twitter a long time. I think I generally kind of understand how the rules around things work. My understanding at that moment was that if I started myself tweeting out, Elon's jet tracker location, that would be if I took up the mantle of tweeting out flight information, that would become a violation. But I wouldn't have guessed that linking out to a different website that had the information would have been a violation. So I'm a sort of reasonable person who's been on Twitter for a long time and kind of understands the rules. I didn't understand that rule. I don't think that they understood the rule and willfully broke it, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, look, if I can't say the similar, the comparable situation is I can't report out his address, but I can link to this website where his address is resident and obvious for everyone to see. No. I think it's a straightforward analysis. They all knew what they wanted to do. And they did it.
But I would add. Hold on. I would add that what's his stupid face? Keith Olbermann. He did it knowingly that it would get him suspended. He knowingly did that. So I can, you can argue. You can actually make a pretty good argument that not all the journalists who got suspended knew what they were doing was wrong. But when Keith Olbermann tweeted that thing out, he knew what he was doing. So it's definitely not 100% that all of them had no idea what they were doing. Some of them had a pretty clear idea that this is something you're not supposed to do.
Right. And they do it again, evidently, because they don't believe what they did was wrong, even now that the argument's been joined.
Yeah, like the ones who are refusing
will they do it
to
again?
delete the tweet. Yeah, the ones who are refusing to delete the tweet, they're saying they're contesting it, right? They're claiming that nothing they did was wrong. So they knew, like the ones who are not, removing the tweet, they know what they did was wrong, but they won't admit it.
And Ed, I'll let you finish what you were saying before we go to Kathy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Katie there. I don't think it was that clear. I mean, this is all new, right? This rule basically just went into effect after.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I realized that afterwards. Sorry. Go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
So, I mean, this rule just went into effect. You could say, okay, it's considered doxing, but doxing was pretty general. Like, nobody knew the specifics of what was included in doxing. And Elon specifically said that he wasn't going to ban the Elon Jet account. So when this account was banned, okay, Elon, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for banning the account. He wanted to protect his family. I would have probably done the same thing. I think he could have went about it a different way. But what he did, I don't have a problem with. What I do have a problem with is banning the journalists. I think, if anything, you warn them. You take down the post, delete the tweet, and issue them a warning, say you're not allowed to link out to Elon Jet. I think that would be a much better precedent to set. And I don't think people would have had a problem with that. I don't think there'd be people saying, oh, what Elon did is so messed up. I'm sure there would be some people that wouldn't be happy with Elon jet being banned. And I mean, I understand their point of view too, but I don't blame Elon for what he did with Elon, just a journalist.
So do you think that?
And there's still one journalist who's still banned, by the way, suspended. So, and we don't really know why. So just
You mean
adding
Keith
that.
Olbermann?
No, well, actually two, but I don't consider him a journalist. Sorry.
Yeah, he's refusing to remove his thing. So yeah, that's his
Yeah,
own
no,
doing.
there is Lynette Lopez. She's actually also suspended and
I
not
have no
quite
idea
sure.
who that is.
He's
It's probably
from
related to something else.
well, I think it was around the same time. I don't think but I don't believe that
No,
she
I think it
tweeted
was related to
coordinates or
something
anything.
else. I have no idea.
Maybe,
I have no idea.
maybe.
So I can't really speak on it, but I think
But
it's
that's a
related to
problem
something
that
else.
we don't know why, right? So that's
I think
the
Well, I mean,
transparency
it's
issue.
a problem in general when you have no transparency, and I think that's not an issue that Elon can immediately address. Right? Like I said before, it's an ongoing problem, and it's an ongoing thing that needs a solution, and that can only happen when Elon actually rebuilds Twitter from the ground up. So I don't think it's really fair to hold him, to every single ban that happens. I've seen people get banned left and right, even now, for reasons that they claim, they have no idea why they're being banned or whatever. And this includes people on the right as well. So there are suspensions happening, and people don't know why. And I think, moving forward, maybe a few months from now, we're going to actually have that transparency. But I don't think it's really fair to say, hey, Elon, fix it right away. I mean, he's doing that already.
I mean,
You can't
yeah, and I mean,
make
to
it
be
work any
fair,
faster.
we have been holding people. I mean, as I am being critical because I want to hold both sides to the same standard, or both iterations of Twitter to the same
but be
standards.
realistic, right? Be realistic.
But I'm also going to say that like the people who are criticizing the Twitter 2.0 did not criticize it as much in Twitter 1.0. So there is a bit of hypocrisy there too.
Can
by
we
the
go
way,
to
we
Christy? I
haven't
mean,
heard
she's
from
had her
Christy.
hand up for.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. So let's go to Christy. Would love to hear from you. And Kathy, thanks for joining us. Finally, we figured out that Twitter Spaces does not work on a desktop. So welcome.
Maybe that's why Connor was trying to join from his phone. It's different.
No,
sorry to be so incompetent. This is my first.
Oh, good. Oh, good, Kathy. We're glad this is the first space you join, and I'll give you the mic in a bit to get your thoughts on this.
Before we go to Christy, I just want to read a reply that I got from Tracy Connors, and it's a really good point. She says, the banned journalists went kamikaze in the hopes of achieving martyr status and boosting their follower count to whatever platform they scurry to. I agree with that. I think that's the reason why Keith Olbermann did it, for one. He knew he was being a martyr, and this is maybe the same for a lot of the other journalists who were banned subsequent to the original tweet.
Christy, thank you so much for waiting for so long. I appreciate you coming in as well.
No problem. Mario, Ian, Catherine, thank you so much for hosting this. This has been a really interesting.
Nice to talk to you again.
Great discussion to listen to. Really, really helpful to understand all of the, the different points of view in this, and even having Matt on here. But yeah, so my whole perspective on this is pretty weird, I guess, because I'm sure some of you probably listened to me on Clubhouse back in late December 2020.
Oh, that was brutal.
Yes.
It's a struggle session.
I haven't come on a platform in a long time since then, but So I've been a legal journalist for a long time. I worked my way up from smaller newspapers to Bloomberg. I've covered many things in court. I have a lot of lawyer sources. But anyway, so I like litigation and people fighting from different angles. Like I'm used to that, and like also kind of like trying to find middle ground. But on top of that, I'm also, I left my job at Bloomberg because I dated Martin Shkreli. So there was a whole crazy thing with that. The point is that I have seen so many angles of this kind of debate, both as a participant and as a journalist and as a person who was close to somebody who was in the middle of a big media storm. And I think that there's a lot of, interesting points to be made here, which kind of hopefully I'm trying to hug the middle ground. I'm kind of a centrist, left-leaning journalist, but I totally respect the point of view of conservatives where they feel like left-wing journalists are mostly just trying to shut them down as opposed to actually encourage free speech. I think that's totally a thing that happens. But there's also the point that needs to be made here, I think, from like a 10,000 foot view, that free speech is really, really hard because it can never be totally free. There always have to be guardrails for public safety and the safety of, like, you know, Elon, obviously, and his children and everyone else. And there is, you know, it's really, I think tech people like have a little bit of hubris when it comes to, like, you know, venturing into the space and not understanding that they have to think through those things, and they have to think about
like Reddit used to allow creep shots. They used to allow virtual child pornography because, you know, it's legal under the First Amendment, right? And Reddit got in a lot of hot water for this back in 2014, 2013. You know, Gawker actually took them to task for it, and good job, Gawker, which inevitably, well, not inevitably, but it chose later on to start publishing, you know, sex tapes of Hulk Hogan, and that got them in hot water, and they went under afterwards. So they didn't follow their own rules. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. It can never be totally absolute. I'm very much in favor of free speech. I think there should be like more free speech than not free speech. And I am totally supportive of people speaking out, saying things that I disagree with. But you know, there have to be rules for public safety. There has to be transparency, and there has to be some kind of process. And I do think that there is a legitimate criticism of Elon in that, you know, he's the guy, right? Like, it's all kind of like his whims and his feelings that influence a lot of this, of these discussions. And I hope that he takes it to heart and thinks about having a more, you know, if he really cares about free speech, which I hope he does, he cares a lot about, you know, being able to figure out where his own biases are and figure out a way to counteract that. Even journalists are not great all the time at counteracting their own biases. There are many journalists working for mainstream publications who are far more liberal than I am, and they pretend not to be. They pretend that, like, you know, that they're the voice of reason, and they're not always. They are, you know, they're being dishonest sometimes. I know that sometimes I've seen some of Matt Binder's tweets where he has, you know, he's been sort of deliberately evasive, or he's, you know, avoided confronting some factual issue in his tweet, and I call him out on it, and he doesn't say anything to me. So that suggests that, like, he knows he doesn't want to answer. Sorry, I'm kind of jumbling a bunch of things together. I'll finish up quickly, but just for the benefit of anyone who was listening to Ariadna a second ago, Ariadna Jacob, and her whole thing with Taylor Lorenz, I do think that there is kind of a cabal of journalists who have been kind of popular on this platform, like, you know, kind of popular people in high school almost, and they've kind of made the rules themselves and been able to break rules when they want to. And I never had anything against Taylor Lorenz, and I still, you know, have some things about her that I really respect. But I do think she's part of that cabal in a sense, where she gets to, like, make her own rules. And it was really interesting. I'll just share this anecdote real quick and then peace out. But, like, you know, I came across Ariadna in a Twitter feed. She had a beef with Taylor Lorenz, and I was like, all right, well, what is this about? You know, I know if you know, the New York Times does a negative piece about you, you're going to have a beef with the New York Times reporter. That makes sense. And I wanted to know what her actual story was. And she showed me some documents and emails and stuff, and she had a legitimate concern that her side of her point of view and her defenses were not represented at all, or not represented substantially in the piece that Taylor wrote. And I was like, you know, all right, fine. I don't want to, like, you know, criticize Taylor's work, but, like, I'll go ahead. I worked for you know, I was an editor, or I was a reporter at a, you know, just a small online publication. I'll go ahead and do an interview with you. We'll just talk about what happened and tell your side of the story fully. I'm not going to make this into a thing about Taylor. And so we did, and I just did an interview about what happened that led to the story. What happened immediately after that was Taylor blocked me. She started tweeting nasty stuff about my editor, even though my editor didn't really have a major role in this. But basically, I think she blocked me and then started tweeting the stuff so she could blame the male editor and not have me intercede and say, hey, no, this is me. And then also, like, you know, all of her, like, friends came after me on Twitter. And just because, all because I had given this woman a little bit of a platform to be able to explain herself. And I think that kind of stuff, that's not okay. That is not journalistically sound. Like, you should be, if you are a journalist and you care about free speech, you care about information, you should welcome, like, more information. You should welcome more perspective from other people. Maybe it challenges you a bit. Maybe it puts you, like, makes you feel a little bit like maybe I didn't do everything I needed to do here. But you should welcome more information. And I do feel that old regime of Twitter, like, supported a certain cabal of journalists that did not do that. And I don't know if they're activists. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I think they're activists for themselves. I think that they're trying to, generate the biggest audiences they can and, like, be the biggest stars they can. They don't necessarily care about the, principles they're espousing. But they are, they're not doing the hardcore journalism work, that, which is really sad. They do a disservice to much of journalism, because a lot of journalists aren't like that. Like, this is like 5% of journalists. 95% of journalists are working really hard to try to get the story right, and their reputations are being ruined by these people. So
I've just sent an invite to Taylor, because I was just checking my DMs. Since she DM'd me a few weeks ago, she needed help to cover the FTX story. Missed the DM, and she gave me a number, so I'm gonna just text her now, see if she can jump in, because I know that you brought her up, Christine, and we had Arianda, I think her name was. She brought it up as well. So it'd be good to. What do you think, Catherine?
Well, that would be really interesting if she does that. That would be a very interesting conversation. I don't know if she will, but hey, I'll respect her.
If she joins, I'm inviting Liz of TikTok.
Yeah.
Are they back? Are they back on TikTok?
That'd be a very good conversation.
No, Liz of TikTok.
Yeah, are they back? Oh, yeah, but are Liz and TikTok back on Twitter?
Yeah.
They've been around forever.
For a while.
Oh, well, didn't they? I thought they got suspended, Ian. Wasn't there a whole story about them getting suspended because they
got suspended 6 times, but it was, for not violating the rules, actually.
Also,
but that was under the old regime.
Also, I'm told that Keith Olbermann is also back now, so he's no longer tweeting as his dog. Excellent news for everyone. I'd love to welcome Kathy, and would love to hear some thoughts from her, and if you could get a little bit of an introduction, perhaps.
Yeah, and like before actually, Kathy, before you go, just before you go, I would like Piotr to comment on something, if you don't mind, Catherine, because he's been trying to make a point for a while, and then I'd love Kathy's point on what Piotr says. Piotr, you did text me. You got a pretty controversial take on this. So I'd love to get your thoughts, unless I misunderstood.
You like the controversial takes. I'm your controversial come-to. I think it's a very good discussion, actually. I really, really appreciated what Christy, was saying. And Kathy, it's nice to see you. We chatted briefly with Cato back in, I think, pre-pandemic at Cato. So nice to see you.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah. Well, I've got some Russian heritage, so I appreciate your background.
Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps. But anyway, the
we
comment
can do the Russian club here.
Yeah, well, we should do a Russian space at some point. But to the point I wanted to just, and I hope Tara doesn't immediately unmute and go at me, but just something that I noticed quite interesting, which is that, Musk has been about allowing anybody of any background and perspective to be able to speak freely, and, for there to potentially be controversiality around it. Suddenly, though, and I understand that it's a personal situation, I think there's also, before I make the final point, there's a bit of context here. So a lot of these real-time flights are important for not just personal people's flights, but say grain shipments to and from Ukraine. A lot of people who do monitoring of the Ukrainian situation, not necessarily because they're sort of pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russia, just from a purely military standpoint. Twitter has been incredibly useful for Flight 24 radar and things like that. So the point is that Musk reacted by banning a lot of these accounts very quickly. And so suddenly we've got this situation now where we've got this, he says he wants to be able to create Twitter as a town hall, a town square where everybody can come for every singular reason. But he's now beginning to reactively sort of ban or suppress or mute certain entities. Now, don't forget, most people in here, that I am actually quite open to what Musk is doing. I've been very disconcerted by what we've learned from the original owners of Twitter and what they've been doing for freedom of speech from certain non-left entities. But I do find it quite ironic that Musk is, in certain ways, doing the thing that he said he would never do.
and how the narrative has, amongst not necessarily only people in here, has slightly shifted in the past couple of days. So I just wanted to make that observation. It's not necessarily where I stand, it's just something that I thought would be important to bring to the frame. But otherwise, good room and good discussion.
Thanks, man. Kathy, do you wanna respond to that point by Piotr, and get your thoughts on the matter as well?
Well, I think that's a good point by Piotr. I don't really have any comment on that specifically. More broadly, first of all, I agree with a lot of what Christy said in terms of my general perspective, where, I do think, and I've written about this many times, that I think there is an issue at Twitter and other social media with, first of all, non-transparent moderation. I think that's that is a real problem. And there is also an issue with a sort of general left-wing slant where, and, Jack Dorsey, by the way, admitted this, where he said, we really try to be fair, but at the same time, a lot of our staff are on the left, and we know that we tend to have a kind of, unconscious bias, maybe. And I think that's been a real problem in terms of, for instance, what do you regard as harassment? Because, one thing that I've written about, for instance, which I think is really sort of, relevant to this, the whole narrative around online harassment really has been primarily dominated by progressive activists where, first of all, there's been this really false narrative that women are the primary targets of internet harassment, which is really not true unless, you look at some very specific kinds of sexual comments, which, are more often directed at women, but in terms of threats and stalking and so on, it's really not true that it's directed mainly at women or mainly at feminists. And the other thing that I've always found interesting, for instance, there are modes of progressive activism on Twitter that I personally think should be regarded as harassment, like certain types of mobbing, Twitter mobbing someone who you believe has engaged in racist behavior, trying to get them fired. I've seen these situations happen a lot, where someone is accused of, often on very flimsy grounds, of racist or sexist behavior, and suddenly people are tweeting at their employer, and they're really they're doing offense archaeology where they're digging up this person's tweets from 10 years ago, trying to pin something horrible, racist, sexist, etc. on them. So yeah, and I think that has not been regarded as a form of harassment, and I really do wonder why. If you look at this story that you may remember, Justine Sacco, the woman who tweeted a joke, basically, saying that she was flying to South Africa, and she tweeted this joke saying, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. What she was trying to do was sort of mock the clueless white privileged person, but a lot of people took that seriously, and she was in flight. At the time, there was no in-flight Wi-Fi, really, so she couldn't explain. And this woman's life was completely destroyed. She was vilified, she was...
Hold on, all this, Kathy, all this happened while she was on flight?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a hashtag called there was a "Has Justine Landed Yet?" hashtag, and people were actually having fun, very sadistically, in my view, with the fact that she was up in the air, cut off from Wi-Fi, and she was being just viciously trashed and torn apart, and she had no idea. By the time she landed, her hotel reservation had been canceled because she was vilified all around the world as a racist. And this is not regarded as Twitter harassment. That's the paradigmatic Twitter harassment story, in my opinion, but it doesn't get classified that way because a lot of people who were doing that were, anti-racists who believed that they were doing God's work, basically. So yeah, I think that this rather long preliminary is basically to say that, yeah, I completely agree that there has been a lot of partisan bias, a lot of political bias, in the way that Twitter rules has been enforced, in the way that harassment has been defined. I think, you guys were just talking about Taylor Lorenz. I've interacted with Taylor. She's always been very nice to me. But, I do think that she has gotten away with behavior that is really ethically questionable. Yeah, there's no question about that. And, And I think that that's that's a problem. I think that she does get away with things that somebody on the right probably would not have gotten away with, at least not with their reputation intact. So yeah, in that sense, I think a lot of the freak out over the Musk takeover in the beginning was really partisan. And I think there really was, on the part of a lot of people on the left, the sort of sense that Twitter is kind of a progressive playground. And, suddenly this guy who is from the other political tribe is coming in and taking over. So yeah, again, in that sense, I'm sort of sympathetic to a lot of the kind of the pro-Musk discourse. And I think some of what he did, like some of the people that he brought back who were banned, let's say like Megan Murphy, who is a feminist who is
and I just got, sorry, just to interrupt. I got a question because I'm just going through your thread as well. So you did a whole thread on your, you went deep into the whole Musk story. You talked about how Musk offered the teenager behind Elon Jet $5,000.
Yeah.
It's, I wanted to get your thought because you do say that, other billionaires have a similar tool tracking them, and they never made a big fuss about it.
It's by the same guy. So yeah, at the same time, and this is what I'm leading up to. So, just to say that I'm really not like politically biased against Elon Musk. That said, I mean, I have a lot of questions about the way that has been acting. And I think specifically like this whole flight tracker issue. Okay, first of all, so this has been around, I'm not sure for how long, but I know that in February he basically said that he felt that this thing was a security risk. He didn't want this to be, to be a part of Twitter. And he offered this teenager who devised it, $5,000 to shut it down. And the kid basically said, "No, I want like 50,000." So, and then Musk blocked him. So they had that exchange. I think that, the kid was being sort of a jerk. What is the point? But at the same time, first of all, the kid says that he was like, when he created this thing, he was actually a huge Elon Musk fan, and he was like super excited when Elon Musk got in touch with him. So, I mean, I'm thinking that maybe that was a way like for him to get Elon Musk's attention. Who knows?
But yeah, I feel like that has changed now. I feel like now.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
I just wanted to let you guys know that Elon just tweeted back in regard to, I don't know if you guys saw that Ted Lieu, responded in regard to the Matt Taibbi Twitter files drop yesterday. He said he's on the House Judiciary Committee that has oversight over the FBI, and that Matt is lying. He said the FBI has lots of agents chasing child sex predators and terrorists. Please stop undermining and lying about federal law enforcement. And Elon just responded to Matt's response to that, which said, being on that committee, you should know, number one, how much has been spent and how many DHS, DOJ employees have been assigned to monitoring and flagging social media. Why is the FBI asking for location information about ordinary Americans and media outlets like RSB Network? Elon just responded to that moments ago and said, Congressman Lieu, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. Were you aware of this program and did you approve it? Simple questions require simple answers. And I just want to let you know, Mario, that I tagged this Ted gentleman and asked him to come and talk to us in the space. I don't know that he will, but thought it might be worth a try.
Yeah, send me the handle. I'll tag him as well. Hit him up. Thanks for sharing that, Tara. Appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, okay. So a couple of more points about the flight trackers. So yeah. This kid has similar jet trackers for a whole bunch of people. I'm not sure how many, but it's definitely for Bill Gates, for Donald Trump, by the way, for Jeff Bezos. And I mean, it's really not, if you look at the pattern of who he has flight trackers for, you really cannot say that there's any sort of partisan, thing there. So this is not a program to harass conservatives. This is not a program to, harass critics of, woke progressivism or whatever. It's just not that. The other thing that I think really needs to be understood, because I did finally check out the flight tracker on one of the other platforms where it's available. And it is really not. I mean, I think the comparison to tweeting out someone's address or exact location in real time is really, really off base, because all it tells you is that, Elon Musk's jet has taken off from, this or that city. And then when the flight lands, it tells you which city or which airport it landed in. I am really, really skeptical that someone could use this to track his location in real time, because by the time, unless you have people waiting, like lying in wait at every single airport and, ready to pounce, by the time that somebody would get to the airport, like if someone were to be like stalking Musk, he would be long gone from the airport. And this idea, by the way, that because he ostensibly decided to ban the.
Dropped out.
Yeah.
That,
I just want to address that.
Twitter, he said, "I'm so."
I think that because it shows you where the plane is going, so you would know when Elon Musk is entering a certain airport. So if you live in Los Angeles, you know exactly when he's coming in. So I do think it's a threat, to be able to stalk somebody on that level. It's certainly a lot more information than you would have on anybody else.
Yeah, I would say, Kathy, I muted you because your line started cutting in and out. So if you can hear us, you could unmute and finish the point you were making. Okay, you're still muted.
I think she's connected.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I'm not quite sure what the issue is here. Why are we still debating whether it's appropriate or whether, we know what happened. Someone showed up at the airport. Musk, who runs the company, he's the corporate head of the company, has tied it to specific information from this account. And so he prohibited that type of location data from being presented on the. What's there to question here?
Yeah, it's cut and dry.
What
it's
happened.
Not a hypothetical situation, right?
Yeah,
it's not
this is not
situation in this case. It's already happened.
Yeah, we already have. Evidently there's been police activity related to it. There's been a complaint. At least the LAPD has been pursuing it in some way. The sheriff's office there. What's the issue here? The issue here is the left wants to make an issue of Elon Musk. They decided to make an issue of where he was going to be traveling to. And I suspect it's based on prior experience with leftist targeting of opponents is to generate controversy and demonstrations or confrontations at those locations. It's what they were doing with Supreme Court justices, and it's what they're doing with Elon Musk.
Let Tom finish his point, please.
It's what they did with Supreme Court justices. The Washington Post was praising and promoting illegal protests at the home of Supreme Court justices. And so it's no surprise to me.
It was an assassination attempt. It was an assassination attempt on.
Even after,
you scared the shit out of me, Ian. I thought there was one now. I thought you were doing breaking news. Ian,
no, there was one, and so this is the same. This is the same media activist approach. Musk is the next target. They're hoping to get, and of course, then they'll report on the demonstrations and the intimidation activities at these airports as evidence that Elon Musk is controversial and advertisers should flee Twitter. It's such a racket here, and I feel the need to kind of pull back each time we start playing into the game here. It's a game. They're targeting Musk. They knew what they were doing, and they want to be able to abuse the rules and abuse him to get him to stop reforming and promoting free speech on this key platform.
I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair to say this is leftists doing it to rightists, because people on the right.
It is leftist doing it to rightists. It is leftist doing it to rightists, though.
Yeah, this example is, but it goes the other way plenty of times too. I literally
how does it go the other way? How does it where? Yeah, point out one single example. One example.
I literally have a stack of letters calling me a KIKE on my desk.
Yeah, did anyone give out your address?
That's a mean letter.
Yeah. Yes, people have given my address out plenty of times. No, and I literally had somebody call a bomb threat into the Fort Myers airport under my name. I had somebody call a daycare making threats to kids under my name.
Well,
So
that's
it's
inappropriate.
not just there's
But
bad
that's not
people.
the issue
There's
here.
bad people.
The
You're not.
issue is
It's not. No,
did someone go onto
can I please
Twitter
finish what I'm
and say
saying?
Ed's going to be
Can I
in a
please?
certain location and should be
Guys, can I please
targeted?
finish?
No,
Can I please
they
finish?
didn't.
So there's bad people. There's bad people on the right. There's bad people on the left. To make this
I don't think it's a both
always
sides
the
issue.
left
There is
doing
a
it to the right.
difference.
That's
There
just
is a
simply
difference
not true.
between look, nobody on the right is platforming these vile human beings who attacked you. Nobody on the right is doing this. But this is done systemically to those on the right.
No, but these individuals were people on the right.
So?
That's what I'm saying.
The point is, they're not
people on the right
not
do
being
it to people on the left. People on the
They're
left
not being
people on the
platformed.
right.
We're not platforming these people. We're not giving them spaces to tell their story about why they attacked you. We're not doing that. Whereas you see this happen all the time on the left, where they platform these activist organizations that are actively going after the Supreme Court justices, and now they're going after Elon Musk.
I disagree with you there.
Okay.
I disagree. I think it goes both ways.
Mario, can I hop in because I got to go?
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So, Tom, it's not that simple, bud. I know what you're saying here, but you're using different examples. You can't use the example from the Supreme Court justices where they're outside their house. There's, by the way, doxing itself isn't a crime. Go ahead and look it up. You can go to cyberstalking, you can go to harassment, but doxing itself is not a crime. So everyone here getting all emotional and talking about
so what
this.
If it's not a crime?
Kids,
virtual child
it's not a
pornography
crime.
is not a
Ian,
crime.
let me finish.
Yeah, virtual
Ian,
child pornography is not a crime. It's not
let me
allowed
finish,
on any
Ian.
platform online.
Let me finish,
with
Ian.
Good reason.
Ian, let me finish because you guys just talk amongst each other and give each other an echo chamber. Let me finish, and then you can tear me apart. My point is, Elon started this, and he said, listen, it's going to be a 1A space, anything within up into the bounds of the law, right? Well, that's not what we have now. Now we have terms of service that are restricting us inside of 1A. Ian, give me a second. I'll finish. Ian, let me finish my statement. Ian, I know you like to do this. Let me finish, Ian. Let me finish.
No.
Ian, I have a statement. No, Ian, I'm not going to let you cut me off. Not going to let you cut me off.
Yes,
I'm going to finish my statement.
You know what? I can mute your microphone, so I'll do that. Yeah.
I'll unmute him.
The point I'm trying to make.
Come
here,
on, Ian.
right,
Don't do that, buddy. Come on, Ian. Don't do that.
No. Let me go first.
Ian, I'm not going to be muted. I'm not going to allow it. If you want to mute me, I'll leave. If you want to hear the same shit from everyone else who's not a lawyer, then go ahead.
Speaking.
Oh, enough with the insult.
Yep. Not cool of that. So the point I'm trying to make here is that if it was journalists on the left that were being doxxed and harassed, they would be whining at Elon Musk. They would be whining at Elon Musk and saying, hey, why don't you remove this harassment against me? And how would that play out?
Wait,
In fact,
but that never happens,
weeks,
though. Didn't
for
you
weeks,
say that never
they were
happens,
saying
though?
that threats had increased. Now, there's no evidence that threats had increased, but that's what they were saying. So why is it not okay for Elon Musk to take action against these threats? When he's actually taking action, they're opposed to it. It seems to me like they're reactionaries more so than anything else. He does one thing and they're like, oh, that's not okay. He does the opposite thing and they're like, oh, that's not okay. So which way is it?
So I'm trying to bring back. So Ian, you responded to the point. Do you mind if we bring back Crypto Lawyer just to make the point again?
Yeah,
you got the opportunity to respond. Yeah, I just trying to find him. If you can find him, that would be great. So I'll go to, while we're waiting for Crypto Lawyer to come back on.
Musk, he talked about the free speech generally, but since he took over the platform, he's been very clear about keeping the moderation enforcement going. And I haven't necessarily agreed with him on it. He's talked about freedom of speech as opposed to freedom of reach, which I think is potentially problematic in terms of suppressing content that is politically controversial, but within fair bounds in terms of discourse.
Has he been clear about Tom?
He never said he was going to come in for anarchy, and it certainly has been managing it that way. So to suggest that he came in and said everything goes on this platform is not accurate.
Well, he did say he said free speech, and then he started adding things arbitrarily. Like, my issue with
he said freedom of speech, not freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. And he also said that he will not let Twitter become a hellscape. He will not allow Twitter to become a free-for-all hellscape. This was something
Here's
he
the
said
thing,
very,
though.
very
He
early on.
he constantly changes things as he goes.
No, he
And
doesn't.
my
Not
problem,
really.
No, he
Not
yes,
really.
doesn't.
No,
yes, he
he doesn't.
does.
He doesn't. No, he
And
doesn't. No, he
you
doesn't.
can't just say, we can't just be going, yes, he does, no, he doesn't. Like, his actions
Well,
have
you can agree
shown
to
that
disagree. We can agree to disagree on what he
no,
said, but I have the
no.
record saying that he did not change his mind arbitrarily. This is
Look, he
quite
keeps
simple.
adding
Don't let Twitter
things.
become a free-for-all hellscape.
Okay, he might, sure, okay, let's agree on that. But he constantly changes things, he introduces new things, and there is a lack of clarity
And he did
about
say
them.
that he would mess up. He did say he would mess up a
He
bunch of
does.
times.
He did say that, but here's my issue with that. I think I understand, and sometimes maybe it will lead to something so absolutely brilliant, and maybe that is the right path. Maybe. But maybe not. Maybe he needs to kind of think and brainstorm that in a little think tank with, some other
No, I don't
brilliant
agree.
people.
No, absolutely
Why?
not.
You can't, like, I'd love to have clarification. When you say you don't agree, I'd love for you to say why
Sure.
you don't agree, why that's not
Because
the right
the
way.
old Twitter used to do that. They used to have a committee. It's called a Trust and Safety Committee, and we all know where that went.
Well, that was a bureaucratic committee. Like, you can have a
And
committee
you're
of
proposing a
fun
bureaucratic
people
committee.
who are,
And
that's
he
the
was
thing.
going to do a
Elon can
bureaucratic
do a
committee.
committee
He
of
was going to do one.
Lex
He
Freeman
wanted to
or
create
something.
one. He wanted to create one, and many people opposed to it because they saw where it would go, right? He gave these people a chance. He gave these activists a chance. But instead, they went on the attack, and they called for him
He said he
and
was
all
going to
his
create a
advertisers
committee,
to get messed
Ian.
up.
He said he was
Yes.
going to create a committee. That
Yeah, and he
committee
didn't
never
make one
happened.
because
We
they
never
went after
heard
him.
about it again.
They broke. No. We did hear about it.
What?
He
When?
actually explained why. Look back at his tweets. Look, when the ADL came after him, right, before they went after him, he actually agreed with them. He said, hey, you can be on a committee, you can decide the moderation rules. And they agreed not to attack him, not to attack his advertisers. But instead, a day later, they all started boycotting his advertisers. They started sending out mass emails. There's evidence of this. Mass emails to all his advertisers telling them that Twitter was enabling hate speech.
Okay, doesn't mean he has to not have a committee. It doesn't have to have the ADL in it. It can have other people in
had
it. Like,
all these other organizations in it. All of them.
He
banded
never
together.
said
You
what
can
these
MMFA.
organizations were. None of that was transparent. Like,
That's
how
on
do you
them.
know? Like,
that's on them.
well,
I'm with Catherine on this.
Before I give you the mic, just 2 seconds. I'll give you the mic. I promise. I'm interrupting just to say, Crypto Lawyer, I'm trying to send you an invite just to come back up. Ian, if you can also send him an invite, it would be great as well. Just so it works for him.
I don't think he wants to join.
I'll make sure he does. I know Crypto Lawyer because Gorka introduced me to him, Sebastian Gorka. So I've DM'd him as well. I'm sure he will. I'll convince him to join. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt, man.
I'm just saying, I agree with Catherine here. I think Elon is just kind of going with the flow. He's experimenting and he's changing things as he goes along. He's like, oh crap, this isn't actually working. You can see it in his tweets. Like, he puts out these suggestions and people say, wait, that's not going to work because of this. And then he has another tweet the next day kind of explaining it more. And you can tell he's like just working with the idea and getting feedback. So I think he has this idea. He wants free speech, right? And he has this idea that he wants to help humanity. Like, there's no arguing that. But I think the problem is lines have to be drawn. And just like with Jack Dorsey, he drew lines in places, and his lines were,
too many
drawn
lines
because he was a liberal, and he drew lines that were more beneficial to the left.
He was
right?
feckless. But
I mean, Elon's going to have to draw lines. There's no free speech isn't 100% free speech. He's going to have lines that can be crossed, lines that can't be crossed, and his personal biases are going to affect that one way or the other. I'm not saying political biases, but his personal biases, what he thinks is right, what he thinks is wrong. He's going to draw a line and say what can and cannot be done. If something affects him personally, like this Elon Jet thing, it might convince him that, this isn't a good idea. Say somebody was doxing, let's say Ted Lieu, the congressman that we just talked about. Let's say he was being doxxed. Do you think Elon would have been so abrupt and would have deleted that account, would have banned every liberal? Probably not. But now that he was affected by it, I think he's going to be like, okay, now I see why this isn't a good idea. So I think there's a lot of experimentation. I don't think we really know where this is going to end up. He's a smart guy. I think he's probably one of the best people to come up with an idea how to fix this problem, but we have to just wait and see.
Mario, every major institution in this nation, certainly on a transnational basis, is organized against free speech. Democratic Party, the Academy, the major media institutions. Of course, there are other exceptions, but institutionally, everything is being organized to suppress speech of left-wing political opponents. You have the President of the United States calling in big tech media companies, telling the censor people. We have evidence of criminal activity by the FBI to violate civil rights of innocent Americans, to get Twitter and other social media companies to take them down. So in the face of this, Elon Musk comes into a company that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's like Trump coming into the White House in terms of the deep state. And so he comes in with good intentions. He runs into a buzzsaw, is trying to deal with what he can to advance the free speech agenda while being attacked by those who oppose free speech and want to destroy him, his family, and his company in order to do so. And so all of these concerns and that we're hearing from the peanut gallery, and I sometimes do it myself, needs to be placed in that context. He wants free speech, and virtually every major institution in this country opposes that and is desperate to keep hold of the suppression that has been going on social media. And Musk could break that open in significant ways, so he must be destroyed. So every controversy, however, ones that he falls into by his own mistakes, or ones that are made up, are going to be used to try to undermine free speech. And that's kind of the big picture we should be looked at here.
Yeah, a lot of it is concern trolling.
Jim, I'll give you the final word, and I got Millie and Jim. Give you the final words, guys, as I try to bring up Crypto Lawyer. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you. I've got more than 20 years in the business, and I just can't. I don't understand why major journalists and major publications, BuzzFeed, New York Times, others, are linking to the work of a 20-year-old non-vetted student. I realize he's been doing this for a while. I realize he's using public information, but Gannett, of all people, USA Today has a link up, which I challenged them about 3 months ago. They started linking to sites off-site that were anonymous, that weren't vetted, because they were about a Republican candidate. And that's the 800-pound gorilla in this debate. These are about the immediate dropping of standards, or double standards, when it comes to a right-leaning billionaire, which he really isn't, or a Republican candidate for Secretary of State in Indiana, or a Republican candidate for Congress in Indiana, who, when she criticized her Democratic candidate, the Northwest Times of Indiana, said she was encouraging violence against her Democratic incumbent opponent. So we've always been told in newsrooms, take care when you tweet. If you retweet the work of a friend or a competitor, be careful about it. And the dossier, for example, was a major failure in journalism. Axios never published it. I think they minimized their reporting on it. And the bottom line is this is all happening because of not just bias, but I'll end with this. I think we should all see this. They dropped their standards almost immediately, and they turned it into a free speech issue, which it's not. I would challenge them. Show me your work. Show me your math. Did you vet this guy? And also, what about Elon's argument? How much reporting have we seen on this guy that jumped on his ex's car? I'll leave it at that.
Oh, I got a piece of news here. David Sachs just tweeted out that real-time doxing is illegal in California under Penal Code 653.2. It is not constitutionally protected speech, and Elon Musk replied to it. The journalists are aware of the violent stalker and yet still dox my real-time location of my family. Turns out that's a criminal offense. So I think our whole argument is mute. It's not a free speech issue. It's actually a legal issue now. So what they're doing is actually illegal. So, boom.
In California, is that correct?
In California, that's correct. Yes. And his plane is in California. Keep that in mind. A lot of these journalists are also in California as well. So, there you go. That discussion is completely moot. It's not a free speech issue. It's a legal issue. and it's illegal in California and probably a few other states as well. So
I just asked Elon, I said, why is the press more concerned about the journalist's feelings than the safety of him and his family?
That's a good question. Very good question.
Piotr?
So yeah, I mean, it's not a free speech issue. I mean,
that's a really good point, Ian. I was even going to say that, in some areas it is a crime. So we're not dealing with just simply a free speech issue, which I'm a very big advocate for free speech. But if something's illegal and a crime, then obviously they have to remove that content. I actually know a conservative person on Twitter who has been being harassed and doxxed to the point where accounts have been posting her social security number. So obviously Elon has to address those instances, because not only, can crimes happen because you get somebody's social security number or private information, but there was also a story where a man was doxxed, his home address was doxxed, and people harassed him and actually swatted him. And the swatting actually resulted in him being so stressed out, he had a heart attack and died. So, I mean, there's issues with doxing. So journalists should know better and know that they shouldn't be putting people in direct harm's way, especially children, and they shouldn't be doxing people. It's not a free speech issue. It's criminal in nature. Just like you have to remove child pornography, it's a crime. You got to get it out of there.
So I've invited CryptoB513 to kind of end it. I've got a message from him that he worked at an airport, and so I held a senior authority position as one of the facility directors at an airport for 5 years and hosted many VIP and VVIP. The trackers are real-time data, and yes, anyone can follow autos and motorcade breaks away. If or when they do, not all units do. Musk often rolls only one Jeep. I think he's just joined. Hey, CryptoB, how are you, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So can you elaborate on that message you've sent through?
If you would,
and your thoughts on the matter?
As I was coming up, the mic cut out. Could you repeat what you said?
I was just reading out the message you sent me, so I'd love your take on exactly what you sent me on WhatsApp and the discussion so far.
Yeah, discussion's great, as always. Huge fan. As far as the airport, VIP, VVIP, you'll get both in. We've hosted anyone from.
And how hard is it to track the private jets?
It's not. I mean,
but the Elon did tweet that the guy used private information to track the jet, not just public information. But the guy's just a student, so I don't know what information. How could he track the jets of so many billionaires? Because he did Bill Gates and Bezos and others.
They're all trackable. Airplanes are scrambled, or I can't say that permissions are granted, but certain tracking devices can be shut off and deactivated by pilot, co-pilot, to where an aircraft could technically disappear off the radar. And then when necessary,
but I'm sure like Elon would have tried to do that, no? And why he's still not been able to disappear?
It's not. You're not supposed to deactivate your equipment. It's for tracking, and it's primarily its device.
So there's a legal requirement to have that device to be able to, in case something happens to the airplane or goes missing, that legal device has to be there. I'm not sure if it's a black box or another device, but it has to be there to track the airplane.
Yeah, for tracking. Okay. Yeah, for actual.
And then someone finds a way to track that box, and that's how they can track the jet. Because I remember when we were covering the FTX story.
They're not tracking the black box itself. They're not tracking it. They're tracking. It is public data. Now,
is it the transponder?
Yes.
Okay.
It's one device. They've got backup transponders, and depending on the person, depending on the intention, depending on the class of the VIP or the VVIP, very important person or a very, very important person, as it is cliched, they will send scramblers. They will send dummy planes. They will send dummy flights and even dummy vehicles and dummy motorcades. In Elon's sense, I can absolutely see him traveling solo whenever he's coming in with him and or his son, significant other, children. He's the type that would only, in my opinion, if I were to be called to duty to pull his motorcade, I'd say he'd want one car. He wouldn't want the attention. He would want the excess. unless he needed it for additional family members or luggage, whatever. So he very likely, in real time, you can track those planes. And it is accurate and factual that you can. Now, it's private because the person tracking the plane and sharing the location of the plane doesn't own the plane or the rights to share the information for the plane, even though it is public data. It's trusted public data that is, for whatever reason, not privatized. And anyone on the stage or that can be brought up on the stage could answer the question differently or even similarly.
Got it. Cool, man. No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for sharing this. By the way, we've got Crypto Lawyers just messaged me. He's going to be trying to join, so we can get it. Kind of end it with this. I appreciate it, bro. Go ahead, Tom. So we'll just, as we wait for Crypto Lawyer, give him a few other, maybe another couple of minutes. We'll go to Piotr and Steven. Guys, what's your final thoughts on this?
Well, I think everything that Crypto B has said is correct. Sorry for the background noise. It's but
all good, man. Yeah, so go ahead.
As I said, so flight radar is something that you can use to track public planes. You can use it to track private planes, particularly ones that are of notoriety and have a celebrity status. So it's horrible what Musk is dealing with, but unfortunately, everything that Crypto B just said is correct. I do agree with Ian on the last point he made, which was that this is now though more of just a sort of left or right thing. It's a legal issue, and the law doesn't care really about where you stand on the matter. And I think, but other than that, I do want to just point out that it was quite funny how Ian, you wanted to get in on the point. And this, I'm not taking a stab at you, but you want to have freedom of expression. And Crypto Lawyer was in the middle of something, and then you are.
No, I don't.
And then I'm going to jump you into the audience.
No, when I speak, I don't like it when other people speak over me. As simple as that.
Well, he was speaking.
I never made any statements about free speech absolutism.
You have been
What's the point?
You also need to be fair to people who disagree with you, and if they're in the middle of the point, you let them finish their points, and then they finish. But you are quite hot on the mark. I appreciate your perspective, but I think you need to be, anyway. Just pointing that out as an observation. Just as an observation. Very good. All right. Anyway, good space all the same.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your input. Don't get me wrong.
I think DMs are a perfect place to have these conversations, and not on a stage with 9,000 people listening to an important conversation. If you're taking something personal, take it to DMs.
And I like everyone should DM each other like me and Tara DM each other. Always like complimenting each other every day.
I'm being facetious. I'm being
facetious. It's called positive affirmations, Mario, and I think we all need to hear that, especially when we're sitting here on a stage and we're getting, torn apart for being up here and for using our voices constantly and getting treated poorly by others. It's important to, give positive affirmations and thank Ian for his time. He works 2 jobs. It's a lot to juggle these spaces, and he also has an opinion and a wonderful mind of his own. So, to come up and criticize him, I understand, but also thank him, because I thank all of you, everyone, even the people I don't agree with, for coming up here, sharing your voice. It's not easy, and a lot of us have a lot of people who disagree with our opinions, and that's okay too, but it can get really hateful sometimes. So, and I've seen it real time with Ian, with Mario, with several people up here, that you've taken a lot of heat for just speaking your mind, and that's not the way it should be, but that's the way it is. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Tara. It's hard to hate you. Exactly. It's hard to hate Tara. I do want to also thank the journalists that came on. They've gotten a lot of slack. I got a DM. They've gotten a lot of slack, so a lot of respect for you guys. I'll go to Stephen. Final thoughts before we have Catherine, Ian, and Tara just wrapped it up. So we'll get Catherine and Ian to wrap it up as well. And we'll end the space if Crypto Lawyer isn't able to join. Go ahead, Steve. Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mario. In addition to the clear-cut legalities of this, I do think that the intentions of this whole debacle are very notable. So just like Elon Musk recently tweeted out less than 20 minutes ago, the journalists were aware of the violent stalker and yet still doxed the real-time location of the family. Turns out that's a criminal offense. So right there, it really is really revealing of the intentions behind the journalists that were suspended. Furthermore, I would just like to just very quickly read what Keith Olbermann tweeted out word for word right before he was suspended. He said, "So here's the plan. Everybody RT the screenshot of the tweet that apparently got the account of Drew Harrell of the Washington Post suspended, and recreate a tweet word for word with that link and the link to Aaron Rupert's piece that got him permanently suspended." So those guys knowing the general facts on the ground and the attack that happened, this is just not only goading and ridiculing Elon with harmful intent. I mean, I don't know how else we could possibly take this, right? So, I think my point is, even legalities aside, I think the suspensions were appropriate when you look at the intentions of all that was involved.
Catherine, you've done a lot to organize the room. So first, I appreciate that. What are your final thoughts on this?
Well, my final thoughts. So I've tried to take a little bit of a more contrarian point of view, a little bit double down on things. Because I think it is important to challenge. Sometimes we find ourselves in silos because we support a particular thing. And I think it's important to challenge our points of views just because we like or support someone. And, one thing that a moment that I really enjoyed is having these journalists that, a lot of people in this room don't like or support or have these pretty adversarial reactions to, justified or not. And the fact that they were even able to or willing to step into the room, I really appreciate that. And I think being on the same stage and being willing to engage, and I think people engaged in good faith, maybe not so much in the DMs, but definitely at least the people on stage and being able to express, whether it's their frustrations or, debate and also express their points of view. I think we need more of that. And I was really happy with that. And I hope we have more of that. So that's my thoughts. I think, Mario, I'm really glad that you did this space, and I wasn't sure even honestly if the journalists would be willing to do that. So in some ways it surprised me in a positive way. And, some of the people that I invited, I thought might be willing to engage in that way just because of what I know of them. They're a bit more, honest players. And some of them I didn't know that they would be willing to do this. And so I was kind of encouraged by that. So yeah, we need more of this, not less.
No, I agree. And I appreciate them all for coming on. And I appreciate all the whistleblowers that have come on over the last few shows as well. We've had a lot of whistleblowers. Like last show, we had ex-FBI agents there. That was really good. Ian, final thoughts on the discussion?
Fantastic stuff as usual. Definitely got a bit heated there. I'm going to turn to Nawal to start laughing randomly. No, but for real, healthy discussion. A lot of it is moot now that we know it's illegal in California, and I just looked it up. Doxing is illegal in various extents in the states of Colorado, Kentucky, New York, New Jersey, Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Oklahoma, and a few other states that have some bills on the books that are coming soon. So it's I think it's a moot point, right? You're not supposed to dox, and it wouldn't surprise me if that website got taken down eventually at some point in the near future, because this stuff, we can call it public information, but it's only because the laws are not in the books yet, right? But they are in the books in several states, and it's just a matter of time now. It's a moot point to call this a free speech issue. It's not. Clearly, it's not. It's a potential security risk. It's a health risk, and given the doxing and stalking and real-time threats that have been sent to Elon, not just Elon, but to Supreme Court justices and to lawyers and judges, it's definitely a legal issue. It's not a free speech issue. There is no value in, disclosing the personal location of any individual like this in real time. None whatsoever. So to make the argument that it's okay to dox Elon because of the public personality, I mean, remember how Princess Diana died? She was being pursued in real time by a bunch of paparazzi, and they sped, on the highway, and they died, right? So it's clearly an issue, and I don't think any exceptions should be made just because somebody's big or popular or is a billionaire. This applies to literally everybody. So Godspeed, that, the the lawyers and the legislators will make this into a proper federal law. It's clearly a law in a lot of countries right now because they know that we live in real-time surveillance. We live in panopticon. So the idea that we can just pursue anybody that we choose is it's ridiculous, right? Has to end. Has to stop. Doxing is illegal, period.
Ed, anything to add?
I just think this is the beginning of what's going to be quite a roller coaster ride for Twitter. I think Elon has a lot of really good ideas, and I'm sure he's going to have some ideas that don't pan out, and everybody's going to get pissed off, and everybody's going to be like, "Screw Elon for this." I think ultimately he wants to make Twitter better, but I do think along the way there's going to be some things that he does that people are going to just have to say, he screwed up there. And I think that can just be expected. I know he just made a post earlier today about how you're going to be able to, when you mute or block somebody, that's going to count as a downvote on their profile. So it's going to deboost their authority on Twitter. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works. I think, it really needs to be thought out quite well if you really want it to work, because there's going to be people attacking other people to just try and deboost them. But ultimately, I think we'll probably end up in a good spot. That's my hope, at least. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people DMing me about.
Oh, and
Sachs.
before,
go ahead, man.
So one thing, there's one more thing. I just looked this up into it, whether there's any federal laws on the books. Apparently, there is. There is a federal cyber stalking law. It is 18 U.S. Code 2261A. Parentheses 2, and it is unlawful for any person to engage in a course of conduct through electronic communication that makes another individual reasonably fear death or serious bodily harm to themselves or another, such as a pet or service animal. The behavior may also be illegal if it causes or could cause substantial emotional distress. A course of conduct means two or more acts suggesting that the individual has or will continue the behavior. So it is. You could argue that cyber stalking, to the extent that Elon has faced, is federally illegal. So
I think sometimes
banning
people
all this on
forget.
the platform is fine.
I think
it's
people
fine.
sometimes
It's
forget
allowed
that,
in law.
they don't care about celebrities or or wealthy people being stalked, and I think there's sort of a dehumanization process going on there. But I don't care if somebody's a billionaire, millionaire, super famous. It doesn't matter. It's still an individual, and they are entitled to their privacy. So it is frustrating that people tend to diminish that. So I'm glad that the laws, I think that's really where we need to start is laws. So I'm glad, Ian, that's where it's being addressed.
Cool.
If I could just add one thing, I myself, I'm not a celebrity. I'm a journalist, and I've experienced online harassment and actually being doxxed to the point where my home address was given out. And I literally had horrific incidences happen where creepy stalkers were driving up my driveway, and my kids were playing outside in the front yard. And as a parent, it's like you don't want that feeling where you have this pit in your stomach and you feel like your heart stops for a second because you're afraid, who is this person, some creepy stalker coming up my driveway. So it's one of those things where doxing can affect anyone, not just people with big backgrounds or big celebrity followings. Anyone that's even just a journalist, you might get creepy stalkers, or you might get people who don't like you or don't like what you write in your articles or in your reports, throwing trash in your yard. And I've experienced that too after being doxxed. So I just wanted to add that from my own perspective as a journalist who has been doxxed, and why I feel strongly against allowing doxing on social media.
I appreciate you for sharing this. Yeah, so from my go ahead, John.
Hey, good.
Just keep it short, just to wrap it up. Thanks for joining, man.
Good morning from Vietnam, everybody. Look,
you just doxed yourself.
Well, okay. This is exactly
what that's not considered doxing.
Yeah,
no,
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Just kidding. This is exactly what Twitter does. Twitter shined a light on the inappropriate or asynchronous application of the law. So I think that this is a case study for what Twitter does. These doxing laws are in place, and the issues around plane tracking will evolve appropriately. So this is a case study for me, and I think it's all good news.
Cool. Appreciate you for sharing this, man, and I appreciate you for joining, John. So from my end, I won't give my thoughts because I think all the other panelists covered both sides pretty well. And I think all of them were pretty fair points. Instead, I want to take the last few seconds.
You are muting me.
Oh, can
He's
you?
speaking.
Yeah,
we can
so
hear you.
Piotr.
Yeah,
okay, it's me.
It's just your glitch.
Yeah, I've just brought you down, Piotr, so you can hear me now. Bring you back up. So from my end, what I'm going to do, and I think something Catherine would agree with, and I think other panelists would agree with, is that I just don't want to take any credit for this space. I want to make sure the journalists get the credit, both journalists on both sides of the aisle. Because, as much as we'd like to criticize them, I think what they do as well in holding others responsible, and there's a lot of good they do despite their biases, despite, a lot of mistakes they make and intentional things they do that we don't agree with. I think the job that they do is needed, and they should get the credit for jumping into the space and addressing the questions that we had. So just want to thank them all. Catherine, if you can message them all as well, send them my regards. I'll message some of them as well. It was a great discussion. I appreciate all of them joining in and discussing with others. And I think they agreed on many points. There wasn't that much that they disagreed on, if you haven't noticed. I think all some mentioned that maybe they don't think it is. It was a worthwhile discussion. And I think the main point, I think there's good points on both sides of that argument. So it was a really good discussion. I think net, I'm pretty positive, and I think it was a bit blown out of proportion. When I first saw them banned and I found out it's only for 7 days, I didn't even think it's worth doing a space. I thought I'll take the weekend off. But obviously it became a much bigger issue about journalism in general and censorship on Twitter. So here we are. But it was a great space. Appreciate you all for jumping in on Saturday. And tomorrow it's a pinned tweet on my profile, and I think it's pinned above after Elon Musk's tweets. The big space that everyone's waiting for about COVID. So it's going to be tomorrow. And it's going to be a really tough one, but hopefully it goes well. But otherwise, thanks a lot, Catherine, Ian, for co-hosting, and all other panelists for jumping on. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Catherine.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mario.